Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Wise Guys Monday night. Boy, things are crazy in Cougar Nation. There's basketball, there's football, there's everything in between. Our live stream is hopping already. A lot of Texans on there right out of the gate.
Beaumont, Texas is first in the house. Way to go, Michael Zimmerman. And Robert Robb from Risk, California. So we got Texas, California, Nebraska, Harriman, Utah, already in the house before we even hit the air.
There's Vernal, Utah.
Yeah, Vernal's coming in.
Debbie's ecstatic about the win against Arizona.
68 today in Roseville, California.
Yeah, it was 70-something when I was there on Saturday for baseball.
Roseville, the most famous BYU player from Roseville, the Roseville Rifle himself, Robbie Bosco.
Robbie Bosco, Westlake Village, California in. So I'm Dave McCann. That's Blaine Fowler. We're the Wise Guys. This is the biggest BYU Sports live stream show in the whole world. And we'll see from our stream tonight people saying hi from all over the place. We're presented by Brady Plus, distributed by the Deseret News, and the new podcast will be out tomorrow wherever you get podcasts.
Yeah, and be sure to subscribe to our free email at wiseguys.com. You can also watch for all of our past content. So if you go to wiseguys.com, you're going to see this whole, it's like a Rolodex of unbelievable people, because that's who we've had on as guests over the last 2.5 years. Is it 2.5 years?
Yeah, almost 3.
Almost 3 years.
May.
When I look at that guest list, it blows me away. I just go, wow, I remember that show. I remember that show. And I watch some of the clips from that. So that's all out there for you. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on your YouTube channel if you're watching us on YouTube tonight, or if you're just watching it on YouTube tomorrow or the next day, watching the video there. Subscribe to that. That helps us stay alive. That keeps things going. We are really grateful to all of you that join us on the live stream on Monday nights, and also to everybody that downloads the podcast or watches it other times during the week. We've got great. This is a great community. It's a family of BYU fans that gets together every week with us.
So I was on the road with baseball for 10 days. We were in Fresno, we were in Los Angeles with UCLA, and then we were in Northridge for Cal State Northridge. All 3 places were fans of the Wise Guys.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, thanks for saying that. Appreciate that.
I love it. I love
it. It's a cool thing. And we're all week long on YouTube and all that stuff. But tonight, the live stream is when we're live reacting to what you're talking about, like Dr. Sean Woodland saying, take heart, spring is coming. Indeed it is. Feels great here in Utah today. There's Cary, Idaho in the house. And we got a lot going on. We want to thank Brady Plus, our title sponsor. They provide cleaning, food service, and packaging equipment, dispensers, and service and repairs with over 150 distribution facilities across the country, over 6,000 employees. Look for their products at the Pentagon, at Disney World, and all over the place, and we appreciate their support.
Everywhere I am, I see Brady stuff, which I love. So, hey, and also the Deseret News. We're grateful to have them as partners. They're now our distribution partner, Deseret.com, Utah's newspaper since 1850. Watch for our content on all of their social media sites as we serve Cougar Nation all over the world. 2 great partners that we have.
Here's what we're excited about for tonight's show. Spring football starts Thursday, if you can believe that. It's here. And Jeff Hansen's going to join us. He'll give us the latest on recruiting. Also, he's going to reveal his top 5 impact players for the fall. And we love when Jeff comes on the show. And we know you do, too, because we get plenty of views and plenty of reaction. Yeah. So Jeff Hansen's coming up just a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Hey, BYU Hoops returns to the top 25.
How about that?
That's when we think about the fact that they didn't get a single vote last week to be in the top 25, and now they are in the top 25. What a difference a week makes.
Jump.
What a difference winning 8 of your last 10 makes, and what a difference of beating a bunch of quad 1 teams, 4 quad 1 wins. So that was really, really cool.
How about you beat 2 ranked teams back-to-back for the first time in 26 years?
And 1 at home and 1 on the road.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And I think you played better on the road.
And one of the, certainly on offense, and one of the toughest road venues to play in the country. And you score 90 plus. Pretty fun.
We're going big time tonight. Track and field director at BYU, Ed Eyestone, is going to be here in studio. Take your questions. They got the Big 12 championships coming up this weekend. And you know what was kind of sneaky is that the women indoor track team is number 2 in the country. And the men cracked the top 25 at number 25.
Yeah, it's kind of sneaky.
This isn't cross country we're talking about.
This is what you and I expect out of this group. And so
Ed Eyestone's going to be here with us.
I just saw, we might have to ask him some basketball questions. I saw Ed at the Kansas game. So he and Lynn were there. So Ed watched, he follows it all. It's fun the coaches at BYU, Kalani was there too. They support one another, which is awesome. It's like a family of coaches there, and they have meetings together. And I ran into Ed and his wife Lynn there. So
we'll ask him some basketball questions.
Yeah.
Let's fire things up with men's hoops. That's what the stream's hopping about, and that's what Cougar Nation is abuzz after that win on Saturday. But the news today is that the AP Top 25 has the Cougars in it. At number 25, they're just behind Mississippi State, St. Mary's, we know St. Mary's, and Arizona. And the Cougars knocked Kansas out of the top 25 for the first time in 80 weeks.
Wow.
BYU went, as you mentioned a moment ago, they got no votes last week.
Right.
To past everyone getting votes to number 25.
Yeah, and rightly so. You and I were talking about they were good enough to be ranked last week, but they needed to get a couple more signature wins, and they did. They're now 19-8, 10-6 in the Big 12. 2 games ahead of where they were at the same time last year. 8-2 in their last 10 games. Wow.
That is that because that every game you could lose all those games, right? You could lose any game in the Big 12.
Yeah, the bad teams have enough talent to beat you if you don't play well.
Yeah, so they put in going 8-2. San Antonio's in the house. So Saratoga Springs. There's sunny San Diego. Good to have you guys with us. Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. Go Cougs.
Wow.
Good to have you here with us. There's Drummond, Montana.
Up there yet. It's not spring in Drummond, Montana either.
Did they get spring up there in Alaska?
They do in Montana, but in Alaska spring's like in June.
Hang on, Montana. Spring's like 6 months away.
Yeah.
But we'll send it to you. Once we get it, we'll send it on up. Richie Saunders, Big 12 Player of the Week, has mentioned the first time since the Cougars joined the Big 12 that they've had a player that's played better than everyone else in the league during that week.
Which is really great. And then the BYU's first back-to-back wins against ranked opponents, and as we mentioned, a home and away win, which makes it even better. That's the first time in 26 years.
What did you think on the stream? Was the Kansas win bigger or was the Arizona win bigger? I'm going to say Arizona. Kansas was won by 34, but on the road to a team that beat you last month.
And frankly, remember, they didn't score for 7 minutes. Arizona locked them down when they were here in the Marriott Center when they played the last time. And my big question going in was, man, BYU shot it so well against Kansas, but Arizona's they were so good. The matchups were so tough for BYU defensively. Can BYU go on the road and shoot it well? My goodness.
Yeah, they were phenomenal.
They answered that with a resounding, don't ask us about offense right now. We're great on offense, and nobody can stop us. And the last time a team scored that many points in that building was when Jimmer took the Cougs in there and put up 49 himself, and the Cougs scored 90.
Phenomenal. Travis says Arizona was a bigger win. So does Weston. Arizona was the biggest win of the year. And there's Neil from Tucson. Got the dub. We were there, heard the chant. Proud of the Cougar basketball team. We're going to talk about those chants here.
I like that Clint McKinley says, well-deserved honor for King Richard. I guess that Rebel named him that. And says Arizona was a bigger road win because it was road.
Well, Tony from Alaska says 14 below here right now, but the sun's shining.
I don't care if the sun is out. When it's 14 below, it's freezing, right?
Yeah. Trent says Arizona was the best game. Love the Kansas game, though. Well, here's what that Arizona win did. As we look at the NCAA tournament, the net now is 29, and BYU has 4 quad 1 wins. Ken Palm's up to 27. Lenardi comes out with his new bracketology tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So before the Arizona win, he had him as a 9 seed.
Yeah.
And
what do you think, 6 seed this week?
Maybe. Well, we never get the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, so maybe 7.
And Jonathan Tavernari always says, whatever the seed seems right, add 1 to it because of no Sunday play.
Yeah.
That's what JT always says. So if I'm thinking they're 6, then maybe a 7.
Maybe a 7. ESPN says they're a lock for the tournament. Andy Katz has them up to number 12, up from 30 just last week in his power rankings. Jay Billis has BYU at number 32 in his field of 68.
So if they're number 32, shouldn't that mean they get to the Sweet 16 this year?
It feels like it. That's what the 32 get to do.
And when was the last time BYU got the Sweet 16?
Was Jimmer.
The same year that Jimmer went into
Arizona?
The same year they went into Arizona and blew them up.
I can see where you're going here.
You see the parallels?
It's connecting dots.
See the parallels here?
Pensacola, Florida. Nick's in the house. There's Pleasant Hill, California. Good to have you there. Good to have you here. I'm sure you're happy there as the weather's been has been awesome. Let's talk about that Arizona game. Wildcats were number 19. The Cougs went in and beat them 96-95. Richie Saunders, 2 free throws with 3.2 seconds remaining. Was he fouled? Was the battle cry on social media over the weekend. And yeah, he was nudged in the knee.
Yeah.
The problem is they let the game turn into another football game in the Big 12. So there's tackling going throughout.
Right.
Then the whistles start blowing at the end of the game, and little ticky-tacks get found. BYU on the other end, Kaba got called for a foul for not touching the guy.
Right, never touched him.
And so I'm like, yeah, there was some contact.
Did Trevin Nell make contact with the wrist
It
on the
didn't look
three-point
like
shooter?
it.
Didn't look like it to me.
So I'm like, was it a bad call? I don't know what kind of call they are anymore. You can get your head taken off and they let that play on, and then you get a little flick of the wrist or a little knee to the thigh and they blow the whistle.
Yeah.
And the important thing is that Richie made the free throws, because those haven't been automatics for the whole team all year.
No, and remember, a couple times before that down the floor, Dallin Hall had the front, or maybe the time before, Dallin Hall had a 1-on-1 and missed the front end.
Yeah. And then the time before that, Richie missed the chance of a three-point play.
Right.
I'll be honest with you, that free throw he attempted, the first one with 3.2 seconds
Rattled
left.
a little.
I thought that was going to the right.
Rattled a little bit.
And but hey, you know what?
Doesn't matter.
He knocked them down, and they won the game. And now they're in the top 25. Everything can change with just a thing, but he had to make the shots.
Isn't it interesting? Everybody was mad at Tony Padilla a couple weeks ago at the Marriott Center because of a couple calls. Tony Padilla was the guy that made the call.
He'll get a standing ovation.
Yeah, and they love him now. And they're like, the guy right next to this Arizona's, the guy right next to him didn't make the call. Well, guess what? The guy right next to him didn't have a view of Tony Padilla. If anybody was going to make the call, that was the right official to make the call. He had a perfect angle to see if there was a little hip check or a knee check, and he called it. And so, yeah, everybody was, hey, Tony Padilla should never ref another game.
We're okay with him now.
Actually, Ken Palm ranks officials. He's got Tony Padilla top 10 official.
Well, the Arizona coach, I thought, said it best. He goes, hey, it was a bad call, but it was made by one of the best refs, and the real problem was we gave up 96 points on our home floor.
Right.
That's the issue.
Hey, without the nudge, they give up 94. You usually lose when you give up 94 on your home floor, right? And they shot 7 free throws in the last 2 minutes of the game. So let's remember that as well. So.
Richie, 23 points. He was 8 of 10 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3, 4 of 5 from the foul line. I wrote a story out tonight in the Deseret News at Deseret.com. Richie Saunders is BYU's Superman. Only the S is in the back and BYU's on his chest because he's a team player.
Yeah, I talked to an NBA guy last week, and they said the only thing between Richie Saunders and being a lottery pick right now is that they'd like to see him hone his ball handling skills. Like if he could handle the ball, like even, I'm trying to think who's a great ball handler on BYU's team. Dawson Baker. Dawson Baker has great hand. So Richie is 6'5", and I think a lot of times he's played the wing. He's never had to be the primary ball handler. But remember, he has a year more. So what that's telling me is that's one part of his game. He needs to be a really, really good ball handler. If he does that, which I think that's something he can do, so somebody that knows is saying he could be a lottery pick because he does everything else so well.
Yeah.
He defends, he rebounds, he's a lights out shooter. This is a good league he's playing in. And he's killing people.
I like the idea of DeBonsa, Demon, Saunders, Kaba.
Maybe Cannon.
Back next year.
How about that?
We'll see. Yegor
to me, that sounds like an Elite Eight or better lineup.
Yeah, it really does. Yegor had 13 points and 8 assists against Arizona. He took a couple of shots that were head scratchers, but all in all, he played pretty good. Cannon Catchings with 14 after sitting on the bench for a few games.
4 of 6 from 3.
Fantastic.
And I love that Kevin Young brought him to the press conference and just talked about how proud he was of him. That's cool.
How about Trey Stewart? He was all over Love.
Yeah.
Arizona's top gun. And he backs down to no fight.
Yeah.
And he's earned every minute that he's gotten on the floor, and you notice he's on the floor more often.
Well, and he's earned it in practice.
Yeah.
Like he's been dominating in practice. He's been shutting guys down. He's been shooting well. I don't think we think of Trey Stewart as a good shooter, but he's been really good from 3. He's 50% from 3 this year. And he earned those minutes in practice. And then when he's been out on the floor, he's made a big difference defensively. He's rebounded the ball, and he's very aggressive offensively. So love it. I love that that's a guy that we weren't planning on. And Kevin Young's saying, now I don't care who you are or where you were a month ago or 3 weeks ago. If you practice and then we put you on the floor and you show up, we'll give you minutes. So that's an NBA mentality.
Kelly at Vasa missed Blaine at the gym today from Orem. Would you get to the gym?
Kelly, I was at a funeral.
I know you were.
Dave and these guys can vouch for me.
I'll vouch for him, but
I would much rather be at the gym than at a funeral. But a shout out to my Fowler family in Davis County. My uncle Ken passed last week, 82. And what an amazing funeral to honor his life. It was a celebration of life and with all my cousins. So Kelly, that's why I wasn't at the gym.
You'll see you tomorrow.
I'll be there tomorrow at the
Thanks
gym.
for keeping an eye on him.
Yeah, I appreciate you looking out for me.
After the Arizona game, of course, the hubbub of the a group of the fans, mostly in the student section, chanting "F the Mormons" as BYU left the floor. And it's the umpteenth time that we get this. We saw it with Oregon. We saw it with USC. I don't know what it is with these Pac-12 schools,
right?
But you get it from Arizona. I mean, outside
Arizona State
of
of football,
outside of Utah, Nevada, just California. There's more Mormons in Arizona than just about anywhere else. A lot of them go to Arizona. A lot of them cheer for the Wildcats. And, you can't keep people from being stupid, but you can never act like it's okay that what they do. And you got to fight it every time. And every time they do that stuff, you need to call them out and defend yourself because it's completely inappropriate. Again, you can't control them. They're going to do it, but it's never going to be okay.
Nope.
And we should never go, well, you know what? They should just fine. More power to us if you do that. That's never okay.
No.
And it never will be.
The thing that bothers me is the double standard. Insert any other religious group in the world, and there would be a national uproar about this. But for some reason, it's okay to do that.
I don't understand that.
Yeah,
I don't understand that.
And it's not okay. And here's the thing. There were national uproars when there were alleged racial comments made at BYU events, which were false accusations. And I didn't see a huge uproar that there were false accusations. No. So when that's the only thing that bothers me, because I think our guys handle it just fine.
Right.
They don't let it bother them.
No.
Whether it's football or basketball, they don't let it bother them. I just get a little disappointed in our community of people around the country that don't just say, hey, we're outraged at this. Arizona State, these schools, stop it.
Right.
Because if it was any other religious group, it would be a huge story.
And there was a columnist in the Tribune today writing about, hey, if they want to say that, go ahead. Almost like we're bigger than that. It's not okay. It's not okay to just go ahead and say that stuff. And it's offensive. It's offensive as a human being. And I saw plenty of outreach of non-members of the church offended that a certain group would do that to a certain group in 2025 and think it's okay.
Yeah, and by the way, if I heard anything like that at BYU, directed at any other religious group or minority, any group, I would be outraged and I would let my own fans know that that's not okay.
Yeah.
So
we get it. We can't stop it. We move on. We do all that stuff.
Yep.
We ignore it and all that stuff. But when it happens, you just say,
you gotta call it out.
That is not right. Be a better human being. And some people just can't. Then some of it's mob mentality. They get shouting stuff that they don't even know what they're shouting. But that doesn't make it right either.
No, and it's mostly student sections that this has come out of. So from the game's perspective, though, we were talking about what game was better, and you kind of went through that Arizona game, 96-95. In that Kansas game, 91-57. That may be the best basketball game I've seen BYU play in 30 years.
Yeah,
most complete. Because they were locked down defensively and were also unbelievably efficient. And they win 91-57. Richie Saunders, King Richard with 22 points. Trevin Nell with 15, passes the 1,000-point career mark. First shot of the game was a 3. Trevin buries it to go over 1,000. Dallin Hall, 10 points and 8 assists. He was magnificent in that game. And then that 30-point win, 34-point defeat for Kansas is Bill Self's worst loss as a coach ever. And that's and then Bill Self said that's the best anybody's played against us all year. The Marriott Center was rocking, and then he also made the comment, that team tonight could beat anybody, which is a true statement. So when I look at that against Arizona, here's what I love. There's a trend. They shot it lights out of Kansas State. They against Kansas, they shoot 51.5% from the field, and 38.9% from three. Those are great marks. 9 of 12 from the free throw line, 75%, right? Just 10 turnovers. Then they go on the road, and you expect that to drop off. Oh, no. They shot 55.4% from the field and 45.2% from three, and 10 of 14 from the free throw line at Arizona. So I feel like this offense has got it rolling right now. And that's the difference. And defensively, I thought they were better in the Kansas game than the Arizona game. But Arizona's more dynamic offensively.
Winning it on the road in that environment.
It's a big deal.
That's an NCAA tournament ready type performance, right?
They're shooting lights out right now.
Yeah. And
they're figuring it out on defense. Offensively, they're as hard to defend as anybody in the country right now, that's great basketball. I hate, you know what? I recognize how good Houston is, but they just lock teams down and they physical them and they beat the crap out of them and they hold you to 50-something and they win. I would much rather watch a game like the Arizona BYU game.
It was gripping.
So much prettier.
In the Big 12, Houston is in first place at 15-1. Texas Tech is second at 12-4. Arizona's third at 12-4. I guess they're tied, right?
Yeah,
Fourth is Iowa State at 11-5. And then there's BYU at 10-6, alone in fifth place. Remember, the top 8 teams get a first-round bye in the Big 12 tournament. Some get 2 rounds, but the top 8 are guaranteed a first-round bye, which means you're guaranteed to play a team that even if you lose to, you don't lose in the net, you don't lose your position for the tournament, you're not losing to an outlier.
Right. And you'll play a team that just played the night before.
Yeah.
You'll have that advantage. So in the AP top 25, we mentioned BYU is at 25, but how about 5 teams in the Big 12 rank? Houston's at 4. Mentioned them. They're very good. Iowa State's at 9. They host BYU on March 4th. Texas Tech is number 10. Arizona, who BYU just beat, is 22, and BYU's 25.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. We're going to come back and talk about this week's games and also Utah they fired their basketball coach today for some reason, right after they beat Kansas and Kansas State, and some more of that coming up just a bit. But we want to get to a football note. Spring practice starts Thursday. There are priorities for spring we're going to talk about. Ryan Rico, the former Cougar punter, signs a 2-year extension with the Bengals, and all that sets us up for this. Our first guest has always impressed us with his insights and his opinions when it comes to BYU football, both with a current roster and with recruiting. You can find his work at 247sports.com, cougarsportsinsider.com, and at Rakoto10 on X, and right here on Wise Guys. Just days from the start of practice, we're happy to welcome back our friend Jeff Hansen. And here he is. Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Doing well, guys. How are you doing tonight?
Good. It feels like we were just together, but it's been a long time.
I was thinking about that. It does feel like it was just yesterday, but it was months ago, and we're ready to talk about a new football season already.
It's crazy.
It's cool. And now look, since we were last together, notably, 4-star running back McKay Madsen out of Fresno went on NBC and announced he was picking BYU over Oregon to play his football after his church mission. So we start with a 2-part question. How significant is Madsen for BYU's ground attack in the years ahead? And we've already talked about he's very Luke Staley-esque in his film.
Or he could be a star middle, but he can play wherever he wants, honestly.
And then the second part is how could signing him impact BYU's efforts to land 5-star quarterback Ryder Lyons and 4-star tight end Brock Harris, 2 other high-profile LDS kids who, by the way, they're all friends. So those are your 2-parters right out of the gate. Let's start with Madsen and the significance.
Yeah, I love it. McKay Madsen, he really was kind of a late bloomer in terms of recruiting. He went from, I think he was unrated. At the time he got his offer from BYU, I think he had BYU and had just received an offer from UCLA, if I remember right. But really wasn't on the radar, and I don't think he had a star rating with us over at 247 Sports at the time he got that offer. A year later, a year goes by, and he's in the All-American game. He's a 4-star recruit everywhere you look. I mean, it's a big deal. He's incredibly athletic. You guys already touched on it. He could play everywhere that he wants. Very, very good player. I know that the coaches like him at running back. I think that McKay would like to play running back. Guys, I think he's an NFL linebacker. I see Miles Jack when I watch McKay Madsen play, that he did it on both sides of the ball a little bit for UCLA. He eventually found a home at linebacker and went on to the NFL as a linebacker. I think that McKay Madsen has that kind of potential as a linebacker. I think he could be a very, very good, very effective running back for BYU as well. Big-time player. There's no question about it. And then how does this play a role into the future? And here's what's so fun if you're a BYU fan right now. With the guys that BYU is recruiting, 4-star teammates, it's kind of a prerequisite. It's sort of something you have to have in order to get into the conversation. Take a guy like Ryder Lyons. he's deciding between Oregon and USC. Ohio State offered the other day. He's got the big dogs of the big dogs coming after him. If you don't have that kind of talent that you're in the mix for, you're not going to be part of the conversation. The fact that BYU is in the conversation and is a really prominent part of that conversation for a guy like Ryder, for a guy like Brock Harris, says that I think nationally these recruits are looking at what BYU's doing, looking at what Kalani is doing, and they have a lot of respect for it. And so BYU's hanging around in these recruiting battles that 4 or 5 years ago they weren't hanging around in. So it's a big deal to continue to land guys like McKay, Madsen. Is he going to be the reason that Ryder Lyons would come to BYU? No, probably not. But without a guy like McKay, Madsen and guys like that in the pipeline, then BYU's not a consideration.
I ran into his parents at a baseball team fireside last Sunday in Fresno. McKay was out of town. His parents came, and his dad went to Stanford. His mom went to BYU. They couldn't be happier to be sending their kid to Kalani Sitake. They're so impressed with the coach.
Yeah, they loved it, man. Every time when I would talk with the parents, when I would talk with them, originally, and you mentioned it, his dad's not a BYU guy. When he got to BYU for one of his first visits over the summer, McKay and his dad both kind of made comment to me of like, there's something about this place. This is a little bit different than what we're used to seeing. And BYU just kept lingering around throughout that recruiting process. We had guys on the ground at the Navy All-American game, and going into that week, everybody expected Oregon. I mean, everybody expected Oregon, but that lingering around and that special feeling that Kalani's got that exists at BYU's campus, that ultimately the Madsen family couldn't get that out of their minds, and they decided that's where BYU was the place they needed to be.
I liked watching him on the video that he posted the other day, back squatting 400 plus, and I'm not talking about once. Like, he was just repping it out, which is ridiculous. He'd be one of the strongest linebackers on the team right now, so he's a great prospect. I want to ask you about somebody else that I think maybe has an impact on recruiting, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on his impact. Next season, Keanu Tanuvasa transferred to BYU from Utah. Of note, he said no thanks to Georgia and Alabama in the process. Maybe that's bigger than the fact that they got him is who he said no to. What does that do to help BYU's interior on the defensive line? And does that help recruiting? Does that have people take note and go, oh, maybe I should consider BYU?
You know, I think more than anything, I'll answer your second question first, Blaine. I think more than anything what it does is guys that, you know, you look back over the last 10 or 15 years, so many BYU guys ended up at Utah. And if I go back in time, I'm sure there are others that you could point to, but Chase Hansen was the first guy that really comes to mind for me that should have been a BYU guy, and he went to Utah. And after that, there was just this flood of guys that followed him there. Cole Fotheringham, Britton Covey, there was a bunch. Keanu Tanuvasa is a Utah guy. Not only was he at Utah, his dad played at Utah. I mean, he's a Utah guy. And I think what that does is it shows all of these other Utah guys, or maybe some of these guys that are on the fence, that, hey, look, BYU can be for real too. And I know BYU fans, we've all known that. We've all said that. We've all seen it play out over the last couple of years that, look, these two programs are a lot more neck and neck than any Utah fan wants to admit. But we hadn't really seen that trickle down to the recruiting level yet. And I think a guy like Tanuvasa, who was unquestionably going to be a starter for Utah next year, to have a guy like that transfer from Utah to BYU, that's a huge deal when BYU goes heads up against Utah on the recruiting trail. What is he going to do on the field? Man, he's a day one starter. Keanu Tanuvasa is that guy in the middle of the defense. He's the guy that I think when Kalani Sitake took over as the head coach at BYU, it was guys like Keanu Tanuvasa that everybody thought was going to come right away. And it's taken some time to get those guys there. And I think you look at the last couple of classes, you know, Tanuvasa now, Sani Tuala was a guy that Utah wanted a lot. There's been a couple of guys. Vili Pua is another one. You're starting to see it happen, that the guys that went to Utah, the Star Lotelales, guys like that are now coming to BYU, and Tanuvasa will be the most prominent name, but I think he's the first of what will be a handful of guys that could have gone to either school and ended up making an impact at BYU.
You know, it's interesting. Little practice report, guys. Do have a little insider at practice. Right. For this last couple of weeks, he has been popping out and standing out, and coaches are saying, wait, he's better right now than he was during the season last year. Like, he's in better shape. And they said unbelievably strong and explosive. And that they did not realize that his work ethic and his leadership could be the way it is right now. Like, he's leading out in all the drills and working hard. And it's almost like he's determined, like, this is my shot to get to the NFL, to be a star Lotulelei and that kind of stuff. And he is putting in the work, and he's popping off the field when people are watching him. So that's kind of exciting. I'm kind of excited to see him play inside.
Love seeing that.
So
BYU recruiting guru Jeff Hansen's on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus, distributed by the Deseret News. Spring practice starts Thursday. So for a team that finished 11-2, ranked 13th in the final AP Top 25, Jeff, if you're Kalani Sitake, what would be on your spring football to-do list?
You know, I think the biggest thing that separated BYU last year from the team that they were in 2023 was how bad they wanted it, right? I mean, there's so many. You could go through individual position battles. You could still talk about maybe portal additions and things like that. But I think what made that 24 team so special is that they were determined to prove everybody wrong. How do you stay motivated when you were 11-2, 13th in the country? And I think the recipe's right there. Look, you didn't make it to the Big 12 championship game. Tiebreakers didn't go in your favor. You shouldn't have ever been in the situation that you needed a tiebreaker rule. You had the opportunity there, and it didn't happen. You didn't make the playoff. You were one of the first four out, right? If you're one of the first four out of the NCAA tournament in basketball, that's going to motivate you all offseason long.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing that Kalani and this coaching staff, they have to continue to re-emphasize, is that they got to figure out a way to keep this team hungry, every position group. And that's going to be the biggest difference, because really that hunger, that motivation, that intrinsic something that gets somebody going, that's what's going to allow the quarterbacks to get better, right? If McKay Hillstead is determined to play a bigger role on the roster this year, he's going to push Jake Retzlaff to be even better. And that's what has to happen. There's openings at the wide receiver spot. You know, there's going to be reps that need to be handed out. Who of those younger guys is hungry and determined to say, I am the difference? I can be the guy that I didn't get a lot of time last year, but now I'm going to get on the field. Maybe it's Cody Hagan, and I am going to be the difference between 12-1 and 11-2. That's going to bring everybody up, right? High tide raises everybody, but it starts with that hunger. And I think that's the biggest thing for me that the coaching staff has to do, because it's February. I mean, the off season is long.
Yeah.
You got to do something in spring ball to light a fire under these guys so that they're self-motivated throughout the summer. That's the biggest thing for me.
You know, we talked a lot about Keanu Tanuvasa as a newcomer that could have an impact. Are there some other newcomers, or maybe it's a young player that we didn't really talk about much last year that's going to have an impact? A couple of those that you're thinking about need to step up in spring and could have an impact in the fall?
Yeah, I look at the cornerback room, and this is the first year that I think finally that Weber State pipeline, it's dry. And so there's some young cornerbacks that are going to have to step up, whether it's Trey Alexander, Jonathan Cabella. Getting Maury Bamba back is huge. But replacing Jacob Robinson, Mark Collins, there's going to be opportunities for some of these younger guys. I think there are guys in that room who can play very well. I love Trey Alexander's length on the outside. I love Jonathan Cabella's quickness. I think he could be a phenomenal nickelback. Jaden Dunlap, he's been in the program for a couple of years, hasn't made a huge impact. Can he find some playing time? That cornerback room, there's going to have to be somebody who steps up, because BYU didn't go to the portal and get that immediate starting guy like Eddie Heckard or Cam Garrett like they've had these last couple of years. Beyond that, I look at a guy like Cody Hagan, who I mentioned, all the talent in the world, that if you just are talking pure raw talent, not experience, not matching it up with anything else, he's got a case that he's the most talented wide receiver in the room. He's exceptionally fast. He's got elite hands. His route running is special. Cody Hagan can be a difference maker. He was just fresh off his mission last year. If he can be healthy and find his role on this team, that's a huge boost to an already pretty good wide receiver room. So I think there's some guys. And then I really do look at McKay Hillstead. He's such an important role. He has such an important role, and really Trayson Bourget as well. But I look at McKay Hillstead as he's got to be, at minimum, Gary Bohannon, right? Gary Bohannon pushed Jake all season long, was a leader in the locker room all season long. And even though he didn't get the playing time that maybe he thought he would get, he made the team better. McKay Hillstead has to do that. He's got to find a way to make it so that Jake Retzlaff can't be comfortable, that the offense isn't comfortable. The quarterback's got to find a way to push everybody else ahead of him.
Tracy on the live stream from Raleigh, North Carolina. Mel from Anchorage, Alaska. Mel says, Blaine, your son Landon was one of my assistants in India.
Oh, wow.
Great young man. Good to have you on the live stream tonight,
right.
Mel.
Yeah, President Nichols. I love it. Yeah. and our son Kellen served in Alaska and knew President Nichols there too.
There's a small world.
Yeah, it's crazy. So we had one serve in Alaska, and the Nichols were a big part of what they're doing, and then one go to India, and they're still there.
And now they're on our show.
That's an international family right there.
Jeff,
So,
what area do you want Jake Retzlaff to work on in the next month? A couple of those mistakes cost games, but he went 11-2. He won more P5 games in a single season than anyone in BYU history. So here he comes back. So what's the next month for Jake?
Yeah, to me, it's decision making and accuracy, and I think those two things go hand in hand. Because I think while there were some inaccuracy issues that cropped up throughout the season, by and large, his interceptions came as a result of poor decisions. He's a gunslinger, and I think you're going to have to live with that a little bit as a BYU football fan. Jake is going to throw more interceptions, even if he's exceptionally accurate. He's going to throw more interceptions than Jaron Hall did. That's just the nature of the way he plays the game. You're going to have to live with that. But tone it back a little bit, make some of those decisions maybe a little bit faster. Maybe it's not that it's a bad decision, just make it a little bit quicker so that he can use that arm strength. I do think the accuracy issues, at the end of the day, I think it was 58% completion percentage. So he's got some room to grow there. I'm not under any disillusion that, he's going to complete 75% of his passes. But if he can go from 57, 58 to, mid 60s, 63, 64, that's a huge jump. Yeah. And for a guy like Jake who played so well, that's the difference between having a really good season where you helped mitigate a tough schedule and you helped BYU get to 11-2 to where you're a guy winning that extra game and you're the reason BYU got to 12. I think that Jake Retzlaff is that close to being that guy.
Yeah. I love that conversation, Jeff, about getting to 64, 65%. Part of that, I believe, and I know the coaches are thinking about this, is calling more plays for him that allow him to have easy throws. Because BYU's been a real vertical and intermediate passing game the last couple of years, especially last year. And Jake's programmed to push the ball up the field. So part of it is play calling. They do call some plays where he could check down, and it hasn't been coached into him to check it down. Like Steve Young started with checkdowns and then worked his way up the field. That's what made him so great. One of the highest completion percentage in the history of college football and then in the history of the National Football League. I think we're going to see an emphasis on that in the quarterback room. And I think they'll call more of those. And I think that Jake will check down quicker. And I think that's going to make BYU's offense more effective in this league. So just a little thought on that, because I've been hearing that. So, and by the way, let's remind everybody, this is Cougar Insider Jeff Hansen on the Wise Guys with us, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. Let's talk about tight end a little bit, Jeff. You've got Reiner Swanson, who's going to have a great future here, but he's off on a mission to Africa. So what does that tight end room look like, and what do we have to look forward to? Can they get some production out of the tight end next year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the tight end position has been one of the more hotly debated positions of BYU over the last couple of years, because there just hasn't been a ton of tight end production really since Isaac Rex pre-injury. That gnarly ankle injury was kind of the last that we've seen of really high-level tight end play. And I think that the debate has been about, well, does Aaron Roderick even care? Does he even use the tight end position? Does that even matter? I mean, the answer is yes, he absolutely cares, but there just hasn't been that guy demanding targets at the tight end spot. And so you just haven't seen it used. With Carson Ryan coming over from Utah, I see a guy who can command those targets. I love what he was first at Timpview High School and then American Fork High School. Coming out, he was fantastic. He ends up at UCLA and kind of plays an H-back role. So he showcases his athleticism and his ability to do a lot of things at UCLA. When he transfers to Utah, They're a really tight end heavy team. He was one of 5 guys who got pretty significant reps for Utah, more of an inline role, showcased his ability to block. He went out and made some catches as well. But you've seen now at a high level in the Pac-12 and then in the Big 12 at Utah last year, you've seen all of the pieces that make up a really good tight end. You've seen the athleticism, the blocking, you've seen the ability to get downfield, to be a receiver. He just hasn't had consistent opportunities. And I think at BYU, going into that tight end room next year, it's pretty wide open. He's being brought in to be tight end 1. You're finally going to get to see, and really for Carson Ryan, he's finally going to get to be the everything tight end. And I've seen him for a long time, right? I mean, I covered him back when he was at Timpview. He's showcased the tools, the athleticism at every stop he has made. I mean, he's made an immediate impact everywhere he's gone, whether it was in high school, transferring to American Fork, whether it was a freshman at UCLA, a transfer at Utah, immediate impact. Now the opportunity is going to be there for him at BYU to be the guy, and we're going to see a lot more tight end play. There's no question.
Well, the guy, when it comes to running, Ed Eyestone, is going to join us here in just a couple of minutes. He's in studio with us tonight as he settles in. Let's talk about 4 guys. Special teams. The Fab Four is back. You got the kicker, the punter, the kick returner, and the punt returner. So how advantage is it to have those guys in place in key positions, locked, loaded, and ready to fire?
Oh, it's huge because you don't have to – Kelly Papinga doesn't have to have position battles. He doesn't have to figure it out. And his whole special teams unit was so strong last year. You can build off of that, but now you can get creative. Now you can find ways to be a more unique weapon in special teams. And we already know this coaching staff, they love fakes. They love to do trick plays. They love that kind of stuff. And I think that having all of those guys back and really the entire, with the exception of the long snapper, the whole unit is back. The special teams unit is back. I think we're going to see a lot of creativity, and spring ball is going to be an opportunity for the artists to have a blank canvas and make something great for BYU.
So the Cougs finished 13 in the final poll. Is that foreshadowing of where they end up in the preseason poll? Like, where do you expect when that first preseason or when that first poll comes out before the season that we'll see BYU?
It should be foreshadowing. I think 13, 14 is probably where they should be. I don't expect them to come in that high. I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist when it comes to these pollsters and things like that. You've got to boost the big name brands in the preseason. I think that's going to happen. So I'm expecting BYU to come in closer to 20, but I think BYU absolutely should be in that 12, 13, 14 range.
If they're 20, Kalani does a nice job getting his guys ready after being mistreated by a common thought. And I would think 20 would get them fired up.
I would hope so, yeah. I'm with you.
Now, look, last time we were together, we did score predictions for the Alamo
Yes, we
Bowl.
did.
And yours was 38-35. Now, the final score was 36-14. I'm not going to...
You got the BYU part right on offense.
We're not going to get after you for that pick. We'll come at you with this. When they meet again on September 27th, what do you anticipate in the rematch?
I love that BYU gets Colorado early because that's going to be a team that's still got a lot of figuring out to do. I mean, so much of who they were was wrapped up in the Sanders brothers and Travis Hunter, and they're all gone. So I think BYU getting them early, I think last year is foreshadowing of that score. I expect that one to be another 2 or 3 score win for BYU.
Really?
I think so. Ton of talent on that team. But I think it'll take them some time. I think that's a whole new identity. That's not just replacing a quarterback. They've got to replace a heart and soul. I think that's going to take a little bit of time in Boulder.
Were you surprised that Dion didn't end up as the Dallas Cowboys head coach after this last season and he's coming back to Colorado?
I was a little bit surprised that he really didn't seem to consider it a whole lot either, and that was surprising to me.
We're ready for 5 questions with Jeff Hansen, presented by StrategySquare.co. They can change your world. They're helping wise guys conquer the globe as well. So see Chantal at StrategySquare.co. Jeff's top 5 impact players for the fall season. We don't have a drum roll, so we'll just imagine one. We're going to go 5 to 1, with 1 being the most impactful. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Lane, lead him through.
Let's start with number 5. What do you got, Jeff?
Yeah, number 5 was maybe the toughest one for me. I thought Jake Retzlaff. I thought Maury Bamba. I thought Waylon Lapuaho as well. I think he's poised for a huge year. I ended up with Chase Roberts at number 5. Him coming back is huge. And I think that Chase, I think he's going to be a big focal point, obviously, of the offense again. I've got Chase Roberts as my 5th.
When you got Chase Roberts as 5, you know this team's talented.
Hey, are we giving up on Darius Lassiter getting another year? I haven't heard
we're not giving up on it.
About it.
I don't think we're giving up. I'm losing hope, maybe, but I'm not giving up.
Yeah. It's interesting because I know that with ETN, that he was hopeful, and compliance or whoever it is that works on it just like very early said, nah, there's no chance. And so he declared for the NFL. But they have not said there's no chance to Darius. Yeah. So we'll see.
All right. Okay, so Roberts, number 5.
Yep. So who do you got for number 4, Jeff?
Number 4, we talked about him already, Keanu Tanuvasa. I mean, look, he represents so much for BYU. We represent so much on the recruiting trail. I interviewed him first before at a camp in Las Vegas, and he stood out as a sophomore in high school as a leader, as the kind of guy that Kalani Sitake wants. BYU didn't get him. It's taken a long route for him to get here. His role in the locker room is going to be maybe the biggest aspect of his game. He is a natural leader, and the team already knows him, responds to him. Keanu Tanuvasa is a huge addition.
That's big. D lineman in the top 5. I love it.
That?
Okay, how about number 3?
LJ Martin. We kind of forgot about LJ a little bit, but when you look at his stats, man, he was really good when he was on the field. He battled some injury, rehab last year. Took him a little bit of time. I think he's healthy now. And I think he's going to have a huge offseason, and a healthy LJ made that offense entirely different.
Yeah.
That's a good pick.
No, and the key for him is, you know what he is. Please keep him healthy in spring ball. Because remember, he separated his shoulder or dislocated his shoulder in
surgery
spring ball, and that really slowed him down over the summer, and I think it caused they played him tentatively at first, and he had to play himself back in. Keep that guy healthy through spring ball, and I think he can do great things. So LJ Martin at number 3. So we got a wide receiver, a defensive lineman, and a running back. Number 2.
I got Jack Kelly at number 2. He did everything for BYU. I think he's the best NFL prospect on BYU's roster next year. Jack Kelly coming back, huge win. He's going to have an even bigger season than he did. He just does so much in so many different ways, multiple levels of the defense. I love what Jack Kelly brings to the table.
That's a great one.
How about the Nixon and Keel and those linebackers have been on the show recently would applaud your selection of putting a linebacker at number 2.
They say that they're Nixon and Keel, who are 2 of the best combos that, we talk about greatest linebacker teams. And of course, we always go back to 84, 85 with Kurt Govea and Leon White and Kerry Whittingham and Marv Allen. And then we always talk about Keel and Nixon and Jensen and that group. And they go, oh man, this group might be the best we've ever had. Those guys say it because this is a great group, and Jack Kelly kind of leads that group. So pretty fun. Glasker's also very special. It's a great group. Okay, so we got a wide receiver, a defensive lineman, a running back, and a linebacker. Who's your number 1?
Well, you guys didn't know my list. I feel like we have to make that clear before I say number 1. But I got Zay Glasker at the top of the list. I think this is one of the best linebacker duos. And then you throw in a Siale Acer and a Harrison Taggart. This unit is fantastic. I think Isaiah Glasker, what we saw from him in the bowl game, what we saw from him, and especially in the back half of the season, his ability to really do it all. It reminds me of Kyle Van Noy. You have to almost treat that name with reverence when you start comparing people to Kyle Van Noy. Right. But his ability to make an impact in coverage and hang with tight ends, hang with quicker wide receivers, his ability to plug gaps in the run game, and he fits gaps so well. He's just his instincts are special. And then he gets after the passer as well. He can do it all. I think Isaiah Glasker, I think last year was just the start. I think he is poised for a big year, and I think he finishes next year as BYU's best NFL prospect. I think Jack Kelly is that guy going into the year. Okay. But Isaiah Glasker, with his measurables and what the production that I think he'll have, I think he ends the year as BYU's best NFL prospect.
So you got a D lineman and 2 backers in your top 5. We've already mentioned the fact the secondary that's coming back is phenomenal, right? We have no lack of talent at corner, just new guys there, but the safeties are deep. We got Tanuvasa there. This was the number 1 defense in the Big 12 last year. Do they repeat as the number 1 defense in the Big 12 again next year?
I think so. I mean, they're going to be right there in contention. There's some other defenses that I think will be really good again. I think Utah's going to be really good again. I think Iowa State returns a lot as well. So there's some really good defenses in the Big 12, but BYU is going to be right there. That they are a defense that teams are going to fear playing, and whether they finish 1, 2, or 3 or whatever they finish, there's not an offense in the conference that wants to play against BYU's defense.
Jeff, this might be the first top 5 impact player list in the history of BYU that didn't have a quarterback on it.
Yeah, how about that?
Where's your quarterback on this group?
I know it's pretty wild to think about it, but it really goes to show how good that defense is. Yeah. I'm an offensive guy by nature, and I have to put 3 defensive guys in the top 5. It hurt me a little bit.
That tells you everything right there.
I can feel the wrestle there.
Clearly, he would have Jake. Yeah. He would clearly have Jake at number 6, though.
Yeah, it would be just outside the 5,
clearly
right?
at 6, yes.
Obvious.
Yeah, because Blaine likes to defend the quarterbacks on this show.
People disrespect the quarterbacks. I just get all upset. So clearly he would be number 6. So.
A close 6. Hey, we'll see you over at practice. We sure appreciate your time. We love it when you come on the show. You can follow Jeff at Rakoto10 on X, 247sports.com, CougarSportsInsider.com. Anywhere else we're missing besides just knocking on your front door?
I think we got the big ones. Yeah, come on over to the house.
You want us to give that people your address and phone
Thursday
number?
Thursday night at Jeff's?
Avoid that. Yes.
Yeah, just come on over.
Okay.
Hey, thanks, brother. We'll see you soon.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
That's Jeff Hansen. We love when he comes on the show. You know what? He just knows his stuff.
Yes, he does.
And he's not afraid to share it. And there was his top 5 impact players for the fall season, and they're all fantastic. The fact that they're not the quarterback gives you an idea of how good BYU can be.
And he's a very good quarterback coming back.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, defense. I agree with Jeff. I think BYU has a chance to be the top defense in the Big 12 and a top 10 defense nationally next year, which is great. When your defense is good, you're in every game.
Speaking of football, registration, by the way, is underway for BYU's summer football camps. The dates are, June... What did I do here? 2nd through the 4th, I think, and then June 9th through the 11th. Anyway, you can sign up at BYUSportsCamp.com. So jump on there so you don't get left out. Indoor track and field, the new polls will be out tomorrow. The women are number 2 right now, behind Arkansas and ahead of Texas Tech, Oregon, and Illinois. The men are now in the top 25 at number 25. Texas Tech is number 3. Cincinnati's number 21, and Baylor's number 22. Carter Cutting, Josh Taylor, Tyler Matthews, and Lucas Bond set a new school record over the weekend in the distance medley relay at Notre Dame. And this week's the Big 12 Championships, Friday and Saturday in Lubbock, Texas. There's so much going on with the runners at BYU. They're gearing up for a title chase right on the heels of cross-country sweeping both conference titles and national titles. Always a pleasure to have the legendary Ed Eyestone, the director of track and field, back on the Wise Guys in a coat and tie and a trimmed mustache. I don't know.
Did the High Council meet tonight? Like, what happened?
No, we had a fun little experience. We got to be honored by the state senate, and
oh wow!
And they just you usually when you're meeting with the big boys, you got to be all dressed up, put on the tie on. So
that's nice.
We were given a commendation for having won the national championships, which was very nice on their part.
So did Diljeet go up with you for that one?
She didn't make it up, but they also honored the ladies, and I'm sure they'll have an opportunity to get up there as well because the women look so good at the national championships as well. First time I think in 20 years that men's and women's program together won the championship. So that was certainly fun for us back in the fall.
Yeah, pretty incredible.
Are we witnessing the greatest era of runners at BYU these last few years?
I hope it just continues to get better and better. But yeah, certainly the last year has been a good one for us.
It seems like we're seeing records fall every week, whether it's in cross country in the fall or now here in indoor season or here early in the spring. What do you attribute the success to? You just getting better guys, or you could become a better coach? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean that's the standard answer, right? Coaching. It's all come down to that. But in addition to great coaching, and certainly we have 6 amazing coaches here at BYU. I think it's kind of a golden era of speed in the world right now, and I think it's a combination. It's kind of the perfect storm of speed. Someone actually called from the Wall Street Journal the other day, and they asked me what was going on. And I said that exact thing. It's perfect storm of speed, because what we have is superior coaching taking place, And then along with that, we have new technology. The technology comes in the shoes and the indoor tracks, or the tracks that they're running in. The shoes now are carbon plated, which means they give a little bit
more bounce
to them. And there's also kind of a special foam that gives a little more cushion and a little more resilience. So a combination, just the shoes alone, some people estimate is somewhere to 3 to 4 seconds per mile. Just as an example, I think this year in the NCAA that we have over 100 people who have run under 4 minutes for the mile. Historically, when I first, 25 years ago, if you ran 4 minutes for the mile, you were probably going to make it to the indoor national championships, which is the top 16. So going from 16 to now close to 100 people qualifying, some of that is in the technology of the shoes and the tracks that are now. It's going to probably take a 3:53 mile to make it to the top 16, 3:54 maybe, that would make it in. So part of it is the technology of the shoes and of the tracks. There's also nutrition, I think, is at a higher level, and just the sodium bicarb now that the athletes are taking it, which helps buffer the lactic acid, I think, particularly in the 800, 1500 meters and the middle distances, but even marathoners now are consuming that. So some nutrition. It's all legal. It's until they say it's not. But sodium bicarb, it's just baking soda basically. But in the old days, people would attempt to take it, but the delivery system was not such that you could get away with it. It would cause extreme intestinal
gas, right? It's just for lack of a better word,
or the other.
That's not good.
That's not good when you're trying to run fast. But now the delivery system of it, just the coating of it, and the technology of the nutrition is such that they can take it, and that sodium bicarb can buffer some of that lactic acid that is produced when you're running at high velocity. So I think a combination of the technology, the shoes, and certainly there's a lot more information available due to the internet and due to coaches. So I think coaches, we're all great at seeing what's good and then, plagiarizing what's good and putting it in your program to get the results.
You said something that caught my attention. You're on the phone with the Wall Street Journal talking about running.
Well, I think people are interested, especially when they see 2 world records set, in the mile within 5 days. Right. It goes from whatever 3:48 to faster than that within the period of 5 days, and I think that's kind of generated. The mile has always traditionally had that sort of interest, and the fact that it was broken. But that's not the only. We saw a world record set in the 5,000 meters as well, and they will continue to go as we get faster and stronger and continue to do this great sport.
Yeah, but all of this technology is available to everybody. So we're getting faster times. We're seeing records being broken all the time, but BYU as a program seems to have a greater number of people finishing up in the top. And like you said, it's the first time in 20 years that any program in the country has had the men and the women win a cross country championship. So something's going on at BYU in addition to the new technology. That's got to be going on. I would have to attribute it to coaching.
Well, Coach Taylor does a phenomenal job with the women's side, and I've had a lot of help on the men's side, and we've done some really good things over the years, and I think you're going to continue to see that. And success breeds success in any program, and any time you start having that sort of success, then the quality of the recruits that you're able to bring in becomes that much stronger. And when you're able to be successful with the recruits who aren't necessarily the blue chips, then when you do start getting those blue chip recruits in, then really the sky's the limit.
Well, speaking of the chips,
how about 2 blue chips?
You got Charlie Voss and Jane Hennegren, the top ranked men's and women's runners in the country. They're the AJ DeBonces of the sport. We know how excited everyone is for these guys. How are you excited for these 2?
Yeah, well, I guess the same thing could be said. The first time in 20 years that men's and women's programs have won the NCAA cross country championship together from the same university. And I hadn't even thought of this, but off the top of my head, it may be the first time that we've both signed the NXN, the Nike Cross National Champions in the same year as well. So that's really good.
And it is the equivalent of signing to AJ DeBances, right?
Really it is, because it is the high school national champion in our sport. And we're very fortunate that, these are local people, well local. One is from Albuquerque, New Mexico, the other all the way from Provo, Utah. So
just down the street here.
And so we're very fortunate just to have the connections to begin with, and that certainly gives us a leg up maybe on the competition. But then we've still got to deliver them, because they have been recruited. Obviously, if you're the top person in your sport, you're going to be recruited by the top programs in the sport. And so for us to end up getting NLIs with them is a great pickup, and in Charlie's case, it'll be a couple of years until we're able to see that, because he's going to be off on a mission. But with Hennegren, we're very excited to see what she can do.
Well, one thing we've seen with basketball, and you can tell us if that translates, and I think it does, is when you sign the number one, it's the number one, but then it's the ones who want to play with the number one.
Yeah.
So you sign these two, and even one is heading off on a mission. That's 2 years of you saying we've signed the number one recruit. So number two, number three, or the new number one, they know about you.
Well, and last year we were able to secure Danny Simmons, who's now on a mission down in Georgia, and we had a couple of people commit today as well, and I can't comment on them because it's not been made official.
But they're big, right?
But one of the comments was, hey, we're excited because we know that it's going to, by the time Danny gets back from his mission and just the timing of things, that they're going to be teammates together. And that makes you really happy as a coach.
It's in the mission, like there's no place in the world that these athletes could go if they want to serve a mission and come back with coaches that have an understanding how to have somebody come back from a mission and make the transition from a mission back into competitive running and compete on a national and international level than a BYU. That's not a crazy statement to make, is it?
Yeah, we've been around the block a little bit in regard to that, and I had that opportunity close to 40 years ago now, and just the experience myself having gone through that, and the other coaches, many of the other coaches in our coaching staff having gone through that. There's a level of empathy and understanding that I think that goes with that. And I think as a recruit, if that's in your plans, then I think there's a bit of confidence that comes with that, knowing that, okay, these guys are going to know how to get me back. And the majority of the guys on the men's side have had that opportunity. Not everybody goes, and that's fine. That's a personal decision, and obviously a major commitment on their part. And but those that do go, I think, have seen the success we've been able to have with those guys who've taken a 2-year hiatus.
Henry Marsh has a great story about all that he shared with us.
Henry's like, he doesn't know what happened, but coming back, he was way better than he was before.
Faster than when he left.
They were way better than when I went. Right?
Well, and our competition would like to say that is our secret sauce. But if it is our secret sauce, then they need to start exploring that as well.
Send them off to the Peace Corps for 2 years if you need to, right?
I mean, even in the basketball game the other day, there were comments after, well, those guys are older than us, and so, it just comes with the territory. And I think for every success story that we've had for someone taking 2 years off to preach the gospel, there are those that it's a challenge when they come back. And Blaine, you experienced that in football. I'm sure some guys just didn't have that same drive, same desire, or they had either lost, in your case, probably lost muscle mass.
Absolutely.
In my case, in distance running, track and field, sometimes we have the opposite issue, just because they haven't been, running 60, 70 miles a week. They do a lot of tracking, a lot of walking
and
around.
A lot of tortillas, beans, and rice.
Exactly.
That can have an impact. The director of BYU Track and Field, Ed Eyestone, is on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus, distributed by the Deseret News. A lot of questions on the stream about the new roster limits. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Before we get to this weekend, has it not surprised you every week now, no matter if it's the men's team or the women's team out competing, that the school record books are just being rewritten so fast?
Yeah, it's caused, some of us with the grayer hair or receding hairline or receded hairline are having to kind of recalibrate. That's the conversation that I'm having with my peers that are in my generation. It's just, it is what it is. We just need to recalibrate and move on. And for the reasons that I mentioned in the past. Yeah. But it's great to see that, we work hard and we are committed, and our athletes work hard, and those records continue to improve, and times get faster and faster, and we like that.
I mentioned, we were talking with Jeff Hansen. You were here listening on the headsets about recruiting and how it impacts recruiting. We talked about that. But what about in other sports? When the basketball team's playing really well and they get a DeBansa, the football team finishes ranked in the top 15, does that help recruiting on the track side? Did they pay attention to that at all? Is there any buzz around that?
I've never had a kid commit and say, yeah, I'm coming because AJ's, signed. That certainly, and quite frankly, I would say at least 50% of my guys, some are real avid sports fans and follow football, some and basketball. Others are just more into their studies and into their running geekness, and so there's a. But I'm sure the more that the Y emblem is out there, I think the more the people realize, okay, this is a great place to come to school. I certainly in my generation, it certainly was an issue.
Well, we all knew each other and supported each other.
And as an athlete here, we knew the other athletes, obviously, but even as a high schooler, I remember, and growing up in Utah, I really didn't know that much about BYU. I wasn't aware that Clarence Robinson and Cheryl James were the legends that they were at the time, and they really were producing great athletes and preparing them for Olympic Games and things like that. I wasn't really aware of that, and certainly there wasn't as much access. Obviously, the internet didn't exist and whatnot, but I did know that Danny Ainge was doing great things for the basketball team. I knew that Gifford Nielsen at the time when I was in high school was the man, and I was pretty much looking at all of the state schools at the time, and BYU for sure at the time. This is back in the 70s. It was really a golden era in basketball and football at BYU, and I think my thinking was that they've got such good things going on in basketball and football. I'm going to go down there and see if the track program is like that. And lo and behold, I found that it certainly was.
I had an interesting experience this last week. I was traveling with the baseball team on some radio assignments, and a student from Northridge was helping some with the setup. And he looked at me and he goes, what team are you guys? I said, BYU. He goes, BYU? I go, have you ever heard of BYU? He goes, no. He goes, where are you guys from? I go, Provo, Utah. Have you heard of Provo, Utah? And he hadn't heard of that either. And I sat there and I thought, here we are in 2025, and we're in this bubble in Cougar Nation and all that stuff where I ran into a kid in California that had never heard of BYU. And I thought, okay, that was kind of a little humbling a little bit. I'm like, well, of course you know us. And he didn't.
He needs to get out more.
Yeah, he definitely does.
Although when we are on the East Coast, sometimes they go, Yale. Oh, yeah, we love that.
Yeah, the line looks the same. And having grown up on the East Coast, I'm used to seeing that.
And I used to get Yahoo, but not so much anymore.
The Big 12 championships are this weekend in Lubbock, Texas. What do you expect from the women and Diljit Taylor's group that are now up to number 2 in the top 25?
Oh, they've just got things rolling, and we expect big things. Now, there's a delicate balance that they have to go, because they are so good at the national level right now that Coach Taylor, the smart fox that she is going to have to make decisions in regard to who's going to run at the conference level, and then in terms of doubles and things like that. We certainly will be leaving some points probably on the table, be at the conference level, so that she can go full force at the national level and score as many points as she will. So I would expect that we won't see as many people who could double and get points at the conference level. Probably not. They'll probably focus on individual, maybe one event only, and then sharpen them up for the national meet, so that hopefully they're able to get on the podium.
So they've already qualified per se during the season. They don't need a Big 12.
Yeah, so the top top 16. It's not one of these issues where your conference champion automatically goes to the national meet. It's just a strictly descending order, and right now that descending order list is at the top 16 in the country, and so we have a pretty good feel for who will be going on to the national meet. Now it's just a matter of going to the conference meet this weekend, doing it as well as we can, scoring as well as we can, and then with Coach Taylor's case with her distance women, she's just going to be picking and choosing the races that they can do that will help prepare them so that they will be at their finest at the national meet.
When's the national meet in relation to this?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So not much rest time.
Not a lot of time. So now the men just broke into the top 25, which is awesome. But the lead, so the Big 12 this year, you got Texas Tech, Cincinnati, Baylor, all ranked.
Yes.
So what do we see happening there at the Big 12 meet for the men?
Well, kind of the same thing. We're just we're trying to get as many points as we can, and also those people that look like they're going to be advancing, they're going to. We don't have as many men that look like they're going to make it to the national meet, and so we can go a little bit more all in on that. But really, a really good meet for the men would be probably finishing the top 4. And I think on the women, if we pushed all the chips in, I think they would have a chance to win. But like I say, I think we are going to try to maximize more so at the national meet than at the conference meet. But I think having said that, I think we can still finish in the top 2 or 3 and consider it a really good meet.
Yeah. 2 years into the Big 12, this is your second appearance at the Big 12 championships, but the street cred is sky high for BYU already.
Well, I think so, and we've been the program of the year on both the men's and women's side in the last 5 years, I think, and on the men, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, and on the women it was 3 or 4 years ago. Program of the year just means you combine your cross-country prowess with your indoor and outdoor performances, and so I think our women have a very good chance of finishing as program of the year again this year, because we've already won it on the women on the cross country side. Now if we can finish on the podium on indoors and close to that again outdoors, then we have a really good shot. And if our men can put it together and hopefully finish in the top 15 or so at the nationals, then that will be good as well.
We're pleased to have BYU Olympian and Director of Track and Field at Eyestone and the Wise Guys live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, wiseguys.com. We any place else? That seems like it's like some nights, Ed, we're finding ourselves on 5 continents with the chat people that are listening in.
Very cool.
BYU is a global university with a global following. So as we look into the future, as we like to do, like I know you go, hey, 1 meter at a time, nationals, but we like to look all the way to next fall again, because you got a rare opportunity on the men's and women's side to go defend national championships. You swept it this year. As you look into the fall, first of all, that's crazy cool that you have a chance to go defend 2 national championships. What challenges do you see to go defend that in cross country next year?
Well, I think the challenge is just to, we're graduating, on paper we're graduating, I think 5 of our top 7. So that's a big challenge right there.
Yeah.
But, and reloading. But we do have people in the system, and it's always amazing to me. In fact, the year that we won our first national championship in 2019, I graduated Olympians Clayton Young, Roy Linkletter, and some no other Olympians, but other men who had made it to the nationals. And we were thinking, this is going to be a rebuilding year. Yet we saw people who stepped up, the Danny Carneys of the world and Jake Heslingtons who stepped up. And we are hoping for that same sort of step up as we go into cross country season next year. And we're also having to do what everybody's doing, and that's kind of reach out, look at the transfer portal. And the transfer portal is alive and well for track and field and for cross country, just as it is in every sport. And with the new roster limitations and things going forward, we'll probably be looking at that even more so.
Yeah.
What challenge do those limits? And there've been a number of questions here about it. What does that do to cross country? Your track and field rosters, how significant is it? I read some comments in the paper that you'd made. It's pretty significant, especially for for the track team. But what do you see?
Yeah, Doug Robinson from the Desert News did a really nice article on it. I felt like it was very informative in, I don't know, a week and a half ago. And essentially it's just one of the factors with this whole the NCAA restructuring and the NIL deal is that the roster limitations are going to take place across all sports. Now, in track and field, that affects us even more so because it takes our numbers, which we've been very, very blessed at BYU because I think they've had an understanding, and I think the administration and has understood over the years, and we've tried to help them understand that one of our strengths is just the number of really quality men and women that want to come to BYU just to be a part of BYU and are willing to walk on to BYU and pass up scholarships at other places so that they can come be a part of a very special place, which is BYU. And as a result of that, we can get our quality of walk-ons is so much better, I think, than you see around the country. And this probably just doesn't only apply to track and field. I'm sure it applies to the other sports as well. And so as a result, we've been blessed that our administration has said, okay, we'll let you have up to 60 plus. And some years, I think, in the not so distant past, it's been maybe closer to the 70 or roster size on the men and the women, combined or individual. And so now with the new roster limitations, they're bringing that down to 45.
Oh, wow.
45 maximum that we can have. And so we were a little nervous on the men's side. We figured on the women's side we'll probably be okay because of Title IX issues and whatnot. Right. They're going to keep the maximum at 45. And so we didn't know if we were going to get the full amount on the men's side or if they're going to bring it down to 40 or 35 or 30. And at the end of the day, we felt really, we had a little celebration actually in the track office when they said, okay, we're gonna keep it at 45 on the men's side as well. And when you're going from 60 plus down to 45, that still represents nearly a third of your.
And there's always a diamond in the rough in that.
Yeah, 15, there certainly
right?
is. Yeah. I mean, the guys that we put on Olympic teams and who scored Olympic medals this last go round, very well may have been in that gray area. Now, I'd like to think that Kenneth Brooks would have made that, but it would have been close, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the sad parts about this whole change is that the ability to develop some of these great young men and young women who just want to come to be a part of something special is going to be limited in the future.
Yeah. You talk about Kenneth Brooks. Dave and I were thinking about Olympics and how fun the Olympic Games were to watch. With you there and Diljit there and our athletes there representing BYU. No. It was an unbelievable treat for all of us to have that. So on this Olympic scene, do you see BYU's runners in the mix for years to come? Is this gonna be a regular thing that we're gonna see BYU athletes in the Olympics?
We're gonna see more of them there. We're gonna see more of them there in the future because the two that made this last games, the five that made this last games. I think all of them are young enough to be in a situation that they're going to be going again. Certainly Courtney Wayman and Whitney and Kenneth Rooks and James Corrigan and Roy Linklater, all of them will be at their primes in 2028 in Los Angeles. And think how fun that's going to be. And then we've got other people in the system that are going to be coming through as well. Casey Klinger is certainly someone that would be in that category. And then on the women's side, Coach Taylor has a number of people that are just going to be, prized. This Lexi Halliday is amazing. Is running great times, and when she starts running the steeple again this outdoor season, I think she's going to rewrite the record books in that as well. So we have some great young talent that are still wearing the Y on their chest, and we're excited for that. We want to get them through this year, and then see what the years ahead provides. But I think we're going to have people in the Olympic Games for years to come, and that's part of the tradition, and that's part of the legacy that we have. I'm certainly not the first person to put people on the Olympic team. When I was recruited as an athlete to come here out of high school, Coach Robinson, I was very well aware of the people that he and Coach James had placed on Olympic teams, and so it's just kind of I received the baton from them, and doing the best that I can, trying to stay relevant. And at some point in time, I'll pass the baton over to somebody else, and they'll keep getting the job done. But we got great talent. We got great young men and young women with great work ethic. We have the technology due to our Nike contract that we're going to have the equipment necessary for them to continue to run fast, and we'll do, that's what our job is to continue that success.
10 years ago, you're pretty good. Now think about where you are today, 10 years later. Could you even imagine the status, depth, success of the program from 10 years ago when you were pretty good?
I think you always just kind of have that hope, and you just keep chipping away, and eventually good things happen. And the last year was an amazing year. Really, certainly was an amazing. And are we going to have years like that in the future? I think we are. I think that I have that kind of hope, and we have the young enough talent that's in the pool, and if we can keep on signing NXN champions, national cross champions, then success breeds success, and they're going to continue to work hard. They're going to continue to have that work ethic, and I would like to think that they'll be able to scale even higher heights in the future.
Hey, it keeps you young. You can be here for another 30 years.
Yeah, I don't know that everybody would want me here that long, but
I need to tap into some of this technology. I had some new sneaks the other day, Ed, and Gavin, my son that coaches on the football team, was in the kitchen with me, and I said, "These things are the most bouncy sneaks I've had in years. Really? I feel like I could dunk again in these." And he goes, "Dad, I bet you can't touch the ceiling right now." I said, I can touch the ceiling. Like, why are you even challenging me?
I've seen your ceiling. I don't think you should have tried.
Brenda said, "Honey, please do not blow out an Achilles right now."
I was going to say the Achilles.
I wasn't warmed up. It's like, I can touch this ceiling. So I used my bouncy shoes, and I leaped up, and I think I was like 7 inches short of the ceiling. I could not touch the ceiling.
Yeah, that's
what happened to me. But I could use some technology.
Yeah. Use the technology, and maybe we'll just see what happens.
A shorter roof,
divine intervention,
bring
the ceiling down.
Something has to happen, because I just don't have it anymore.
You just have
and Ed and I are the same vintage, so
yes.
But Ed can still run a lot better than I can.
You haven't seen me run lately, Blaine. It's not like the old days where we'd zoom up Mutton Hollow.
Yeah, Ed and I lived by each other when he was up at Weber, and I would go running, and Ed would come bounding up the hill behind me. And he knows I was a dedicated runner, but he would just blow away.
Those were the days.
By me.
Before we get to 5 questions with Coach Ed Eyestone, and then we'll get him out the door. He's had a long day. He lowered the bar, raised the bar up at the legislature, and now has lowered the bar here at the Wise Guys. But we're happy to have him. Dr. Ben Brinkman, this is from AB in SC. Dr. Ben Brinkman mentioned in a podcast that some of his nutrition research was being used by the track team. Can you expound more on that? I think you've been talking about it already. Does that ring a bell?
I'm not sure if he has anything to do with the sodium bicarb or not.
Okay.
So, but we do have people in the nutritional arena that our athletes have access to, and I think that all of those things come together.
Here's one from Les. Recruiting talented U.S. distance runners seems to be a hallmark of the BYU program. What is Coach Eyestone's views on recruiting international runners?
You know what? I'm seeing a lot of that now, and it's making Coach Taylor and my job that much more difficult. But we see it in every sport across every way. Our sports teams, basketball teams, are currently the beneficiaries of great international talent. And if there are coaches out there who decide that they want to go that route, I'd certainly understand it, and they're keeping themselves competitive. I kind of take pride in the fact that, I like to work with athletes that are a good fit for the university. And also I like to develop people for the U.S. Olympic team, and I think we can do that. I think if we can get the best, and I think there are just even along the Wasatch Front, the level of talent that we have here, I think we can fill our rosters with really good men and women who want to do the work and get the job done. Now, does that mean I would be opposed to having a couple here or there to kind of keep us competitive, especially when we see rosters that are completely full of international athletes?
Yeah.
That might be something that we explore more so in the future. But when you can have success and do it from people here in the local, then I don't see a problem with that either.
Yeah, if Yegor Demon comes over and starts running, you're getting ready for the Russians.
Exactly. No, it's all good. And then there's, you know what? They're fast and good people around this world, and we welcome them all. And would have a great time working with them.
That's cool. 5 questions for Ed Eyestone, presented by StrategySquare.co. 5 things a person should do as they begin a personal running program. This is for the wise guys viewer who's thinking, I really should start jogging for exercise, but...
Yeah.
And so we thought, well, let's hear from the expert tonight on how to get started. So you've got 5.
And by the way, Ed's been a contributor to so many different running magazines and things over the years. Like, to have a chance to ask him this is pretty cool, because lots of folks have asked about what do I do to train, what do I do with this, and he's written some phenomenal articles.
I had a monthly column with Runner's World magazine from 2000 until 2010 or 11, and it was great. But at the end of it, I felt like it was a term paper due once a month. You got to get that.
You took it seriously, because I read a lot of those articles.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, man.
All right, so let's start with number 5. We're going to go five things.
5 things. Okay.
To get ready.
You know what? Number 1, just get some good shoes. You got to have some good shoes for it. I mean, don't go out in just regular tennis shoes. But if you go to any running, I sometimes call them running geek stores, because I'm a running geek myself, so it's those running stores that are staffed by people who ran in high school and college, and they know kind of what to do to set you up with a good pair of shoes. And it doesn't have to be one brand over another, even though we get a deep discount some of those shoes with the swooshes on them here.
Nike.
But you know what? I think you just go into one of these running stores and you try on as many different shoes as you want, find some that are comfortable for you, but you should start with a good running shoe to start with, and it does, whether it's Asics or Nike or whatever, Saucony, whatever brand it be, just start with a good running shoe to start with, because it's probably not a quicker way to pick up an injury than not having the right equipment, starting off too hard.
Is there something to this? You know, you go into the big running stores and they measure your foot and they look at your arch and can they really pick out the best brand or something based on all of these things they do, or are they all kind of across the board good?
Well, there's certain different bells and whistles and whatnot, but I think there are, you know, they many times will look at your basic style. If you're a 4-foot runner, which means you don't really hit your heel, or a rear foot striker, or a pronator or supinator or whatever, and there are certain shoes that are kind of developed for each type. But if you could just get a basic neutral shoe, I always liked not an overbuilt shoe or an underbuilt shoe, just a neutral shoe to run in. And for myself, it's like a Nike Pegasus is kind of a basic shoe that I would wear, and that seemed to work for me.
Okay, Nike. Okay,
Number 2,
good shoes.
Good shoes. Equipment is important. Number 1. Number 2 is?
I'm a big. I always talk about being a goal setter, and so I think it's kind of important if you're just starting any kind of program to set a goal. You know, hey, there's a 5K coming up in a month, and you know, you set a goal. Maybe you make that $50 commitment. It is expensive these days for a T-shirt. It's probably $50. I haven't actually paid money for a race for a long time. I haven't run a race for a long time, but I know that the entry fees sometimes serve as a motivator to keep you going. So set a goal. That would be number 2. So, you know, look at the calendar, see what's coming up. Is the local haul around the mall, 5K or whatever it is, pick a goal and put that on the calendar, because that will get you out of bed in the morning and get you active and going forward. I think that's great motivation.
Okay, number 3.
Number 3 is just consistency. That's the thing that I always preach. That's kind of one of my go-tos is consistent competence equals eventual excellence. And so you got to be consistent with this new running thing. You can't just do it once and then take 2 weeks off and then do it again. By consistent, I don't mean that you have to just start and go from 0 to 1,000 right off the bat. But if you can start and try to get in 3 to 4 times a week of getting out and being active, that's a good start right there. Being consistent, and do that for a few weeks, and you'll find that it's easier to run around the block than it was before. So be consistent, do it multiple times a week.
I like that quote. So the quote is consistent competence equals eventual excellence.
Yeah, that C squared equals E squared. I haven't patented that.
You should do it. Put it on a ball or something. Yeah,
Yeah,
consistent competence equals eventual excellence.
Yeah, so.
Well, I've got a follow-up question, but I'm not sure if it'll be answered in the next two, so I'm going to wait.
Okay, so number 4 then.
Okay, so be consistent. I guess what I would say is add in eventually some sort of speed work in there to make it a little less boring. Okay, and I don't care if you're.
What does that mean? Speed work.
Speed work could be just instead of just going out and plodding and just going out. Okay, I'm going for 30 minutes and I'm going to get around. Then and after a time, after that first couple 2, 3, 4 weeks when you now can do that and be comfortable doing that. And while you're getting to that stage, don't be afraid if you have to stop and walk on occasion. There's nothing that says you have to be moving at all times. You get in out, but as you're moving up to that point where you can run 3 or 4 miles at once without having to stop, then that next step that would probably be, let's add a little speed, a little variation in it, because that's going to, one, just make it less monotonous and make it more fun, okay? And the easiest way to do that is a workout that they call fartlek, which just means speed play in Swedish. And it just means, run fast for 2 minutes, run slow for 2 minutes, run fast for 2 minutes, run slow for 2 minutes. So you can pick any variation that you want to do on it, maybe a 3-2-1. You're going to run hard for 3 minutes, easy for 3 minutes, hard for 2 minutes, easy for 2 minutes, hard for 1. And then as you just do a little speed work every now and then.
Okay.
Marathoners do that, right?
Yeah.
Like you would think, well, not a marathoner. They're going to go out and run 26.2 miles, but they do interval work and speed work,
and
right?
Division I athletes do it as well. I mean, I was on the road this last week getting this DMR team qualified for the national meet, and they set a school record, did a phenomenal job. But since I wasn't going to be around, and Ryan Waite, my assistant coach, was going with me as well, the workout that I gave him to do a 10-5-3-2-1 step down fartlek, where they ran really hard for 10 minutes and probably about 440 mile pace for that 10-minute period, and then they rested for 5 minutes and they ran even faster for that next 5 minutes, and then they took a 5-minute break. Then they ran even faster for 3 minutes, and then they took a 3-minute break, and then 2, and then 1. And it's really good workout. My marathoners do it as well on occasion. And but yeah, I think add in some speed work every now and then. It doesn't have to be a fartlek, it can be a tempo run or whatever, but there's a whole menu of workouts that you can do to add a little variance to your running.
All right, before we get to number 5, I want to shout out to Russ in Naperville, Illinois, Mark in Philadelphia on the stream tonight, along with everybody else around the country and around the world. So we're visiting with Ed Eyestone, and he's revealing his 5 ways that we could start running for exercise in a smart way. We've come to number 5.
Come to number 5. I think gradual adaptation. So you don't have to do it all overnight. And I think where people run into problems is they go from running 3 miles a day to 10 miles a day. That's a mistake. Okay, so gradual adaptation. But I think gradually we become calloused at the distances and the times that we're running, and without varying things or maybe increasing, then it's hard to get the same workout. So I would say gradually increase the distance you run, gradually increase the pace that you run, because it's naturally going to become easier for you to run 4 miles than it used to be to only run 2 miles. So you gradually increase that. I like doing a 1 day a week where it's a little bit longer too. Okay, so maybe the kind of general rule of thumb for most long runs is you take the longest run of the week and do maybe 1.5 times that once a week. So maybe you're Saturday, and typically with runners, it's the Saturday or Sunday long run they talk about. And obviously at BYU, we don't do the Sunday run. We just do it on 6 days. But Saturday is usually that long run for us, where the guys will usually run about 1.5 times longer than what their normal run is. So if they are usually doing 8 to 10 miles, then they'll be on that Saturday long run, maybe 15 miles.
Here's a question, tips if you have bad asthma and you're trying to run.
Well, consult a doctor, get the right inhaler, but it's not unusual to see runners with inhalers and haven't taken their couple puffs before their workout or their race. I mean, even at the elite level, you're seeing some runners now using inhalers.
Okay, that's good to know.
When you're training for a marathon and you're an Olympic marathoner, do you ever, in the lead up to a race, so say you're training for the Olympics, do you ever go run further than a marathon, or do you ever even actually run a marathon, or do you do different things along the way, and then you just run the full distance at the race? It's always interesting to me.
Yeah, well, Connor Madsen, Clayton Young, who are the two elite marathoners, two of the elite marathoners that I'm working with right now, and they're BYU products, so I use their names. Typically, when they're in their 16-week build, then they'll have 8 to 10 weeks where they're bouncing between 20 and 25 every weekend. So, and as when I was making Olympic teams, it wasn't unusual for me to go on 25-mile runs every other week. Now, you take the long run, the 25-miler, and you every other week maybe drop it down to 20 or 22 miles, just so. But yeah, that's so essentially you're running a marathon, at least at the world class level. You're running one. Finishing the distance is not a problem for these guys. It's running at the pace that they need to, which is getting faster and faster every year.
Yeah, it's wild.
One of the most successful coaches in BYU history with us tonight at Eyestone. It's great to have you here.
Yeah,
it's been fun, and I love it, and it's. Came here in 2000 and had some great experiences early on, and it's just when you surround. I'm a big believer of that. Surround yourself with greatness, and certainly coming to work at BYU, you have that opportunity, and not only with the staff that I get to work with, and the trainers and the administration, but obviously the secret sauce, the athletes. You get that, so it gives you a lot of juice, and it keeps you going, and it's fun, and it's fun to look forward to the future.
Well, you and Elder Clark Gilbert are the only two to ever wear a tie on this show.
Yeah,
really?
You look
right.
fantastic.
Wow.
Nice job.
They just come and they realize I've never worn shoes on the show. So
Blaine hardly gets dressed to come on this show.
I was planning to get on some sweats, but then I was still at school. I did not want to drive home and change.
No. What do you think of our place?
I think this is pretty good. We need to get a little track and field and cross.
We do need some.
We could use some gear for that.
Here.
Yeah,
I don't know
sure.
what we could bring you our national championship trophy, but,
or a replica,
That's pretty awesome.
But we'll put anything you send us. We'll put up here.
Hey, we'll hang some BYU track and field gear up here. So
it's fun to flip a switch and talk to BYU fans all over the world in a unique format, and to get a long form interview with you like this is money. So
we love it, and our folks all around the world, from Japan to Singapore to South America, love hearing from our coaches and love hearing from you.
Well, happy to do it, and we've been on lately we've been on a pretty good international stage with our BYU athletes.
Absolutely.
So we're excited for that. We want to continue that in the future, and I know it makes people excited when you have a rooting interest. I mean, who was not jumping off their couch when they saw Kenneth Rooks take the lead that last lap of the Olympic Games.
One of the greatest sports moments I've seen in the last couple of years. It was amazing.
It truly was. It truly was. And we want more of that in the future, and we're trying to produce more of that in the future, and I think we will have more of that in the future.
What's awesome is those guys can also turn around a few nights later and pack a fireside and deliver a message about the purpose of life. They're just fun to be around.
You know what? They have it all packaged together. Had I had my head on that straight when I was that young, it would have been great, or even now. But just great young people, and it's fun to be older and look up to these people for the greatness that they are bringing.
Yeah, and they've been great to us. A lot of your great athletes have come on the show with us and have been so good to give access to the fans around the world that support them.
Cool.
John says Ed Eyestone's a Cougar treasure. So with that, you are dismissed.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank
Go
you.
put some sweats on, give Lynn a hug for us. And
Will do.
It was fun to see you guys at the basketball game supporting the basketball team the other night.
Yeah, we're always going to be there.
Yeah, and Lynn were there. Brendan and I were there, and we saw him coming in. That was a fun night. So.
Oh yeah. Well, let's have more of that success. We know the financial engine that drives the university and provides for the opportunities that we have in track and field. So we're very grateful for our football teams, our basketball teams, and when they do well, because it allows us to continue to do the things that we love. So go Cougars.
Well said.
Go Cougs.
The
Thanks,
great
Ed.
Eyestone, director of track and field. National champions. They got the Big 12 championships coming up this week, the NCAA championships with the indoor events in 2 weeks. Then it's the outdoor season. Then we're back talking cross country. They're always running around the area here in Provo, so you know when the Cougars are out and about. And we thank the coach for joining us. That was fantastic.
Yeah, so fun to have that in.
As he always is. And we talked a little bit about his Olympic running last time. So we were all business tonight, but that guy's got some amazing stories. And he mentioned the basketball team, and let's jump back into that and then get you up to date with what's going on on campus. And those on the stream, we're going to try to get to your questions as well. Arizona State.
Yeah.
I saw an interesting thing, and I don't know who had it on the stream because it scrolled up past.
It's been a while,
Because they're going to the Arizona State game on Wednesday in Tempe, and the quote was, "Well, I hope Arizona State fans are much nicer than the Arizona fans." And then a guy jumped on and said, "Well, I went to ASU. Don't get your hopes up."
Don't get your hopes up.
So who knows? But we do know that Wednesday night at 7:30 Mountain Time on ESPN Plus and BYU Radio, it's BYU at Arizona State. That's a quad one game, even though ASU is they've got a handful of defeats, but their leading scorer, BJ Freeman, was dismissed from the team on Sunday, so he's out, and BYU has a chance to beat them. Remember, they beat them way back on New Year's Eve. Feels like forever ago.
Yeah, and in that game, BYU did a great job of defending Freeman. He only had 11 points in the game. He averages 13.7, but he's capable going off. But now he's not capable going off because he won't be there.
Right.
I guess the good news for Arizona State is they've had 5 guys averaging double figures all year long. So they have 4 other guys that are capable scorers. But he was clearly the best player on the team, and he's been dismissed from the team. ESPN's win predictor gives BYU a 61.7% chance to win on this one. And
it's gut check time. It's a gut check, mental check, because here they are expected to win on the road where it's tough after they just won where they're expected to lose.
Right. And Arizona State's very athletic. It's a really athletic basketball team. But remember, BYU in the first meeting in the Marriott Center manhandled them. Right, beat him by 20 points. Richie Saunders had 30 in that game and went 6 of 11 from 3, 11 of 18 from the field. He was a man amongst boys in that one. They shot 48.3%. They held Arizona State to 36% from the field in that game. And I feel like BYU now is playing much better offensively and more efficiently offensively than they were back then.
Yeah, they're a much different team.
I expect them to win this game.
Saturday night, West Virginia is in Provo. It's a long ways from home. The Mountaineers are coming. That's an 8 o'clock Mountain Time start. ESPN2 or ESPNU. It's still an either or on this Monday night. Pre-game on BYU TVs at 7 Mountain Time for an hour, and then the post-game show as well.
Are you on that one with us?
No, I'm going to be in Gonzaga for baseball.
Oh, I know you're
I'll be in Spokane as BYU plays Gonzaga.
Are you going to be on with us for the Utah game?
Yeah.
I think you are. Yeah, so Dave will be on with us on the Utah game. I'll be on that one on Saturday night, and we'll be bringing that to you. So notable games in the Big 12 coming up. Houston's at Texas Tech tonight. So do we have a score on that one right now?
Let me check.
Yeah, that's a big game. Those two teams are both ranked in Houston's phenomenal defensively. Texas Tech's phenomenal offensively, so that'll be a fun one. While Dave's looking that up, BYU's at Arizona State Wednesday. We mentioned that. West Virginia, BYU Saturday. Texas Tech's at Kansas Saturday. And then Arizona's at Iowa State on Saturday. That's another big one.
That is a big one. And BYU's a game back of Iowa State now.
Right.
It could come down to
Arizona have a bounce-back game and go beat Iowa State?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, or BYU goes and beats Iowa State.
And
both takes the higher seed going into the Big 12.
That would be fun.
Houston and Texas Tech is a 2-point game with 7 minutes left in the first half.
Okay.
Some coaching news today. Utah fired Craig Smith. Assistant coach Josh Eilert's going to fill in for the rest of the season. The Utes play at BYU on March 8th. They just beat Kansas State and Kansas, and then they went to UCF and got beat by 4, which notable.
UCF's a tough place to play.
But then they fire the coach. Something must be going on.
I don't
up
know.
there.
Like, let us know how you feel in the chat. Is there a benefit to firing a college basketball coach in the middle of the season? I don't know.
Can't think of one. Unless something happened.
Yeah, and here's the thing: Craig Smith. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but he's been a good man and has been a really successful coach. Assistant at Colorado State to Tim Miles back in the old Mountain West Conference days. Got to know him then. Coached at Nebraska. He's a very good basketball coach, and like you said, it seems weird in a week when they've just had a couple of big wins. But lots of names being thrown out there. Of course, immediately everybody starts talking about Alex Jensen.
Yeah. And our friend on the Cougar roster.
Yeah, Chris Burgess.
Chris Burgess. But I have a feeling that Alex Jensen's who they're going after.
Yeah.
They got to find a splash or they're just going to disappear.
It's like you have to make a statement somehow. Yeah. And Alex would be a statement.
Yeah.
Right? Take him back to Final Four days, right? And an NBA coach. So,
yeah, Utah's AD's had an interesting year, and we'll see what they do. But what they have to do is something significant because BYU's forcing them to do that.
Yeah.
Right now, Utah State's so much better than Utah. It's ridiculous. Yeah. The fact that BYU went to the U and got beat is kind of a monkey wrench in the whole thing, but BYU and Utah are in completely different places in basketball, and one is going straight up with DeBansa and those guys coming.
Utah has one of the most disparate home and away records in the country this year. So they've been phenomenal at home, and we witnessed that with Kansas State and Kansas and BYU, and they've been awful on the road. Awful on the road.
Josh on the stream says, I, for one, am loving how Mark Harlan's running things at Utah. Lifetime contract, please. I can see the sarcasm coming through the link.
Josh Summerhays. Way to go, Josh.
Nice job, Josh.
Because of that disparity.
It's not going to make them better against Arizona this week.
And I think when they come down to Provo, they just haven't been good on the road.
No.
I think BYU runs them out of the building in that one.
Yeah,
so
they should.
Yeah.
Attendance-wise, the Marriott Center, shout out to Cougar Nation in the top 7 in the country.
That's right.
In attendance, and there are a lot of venues in the country. When you think of their football teams, in football there's 130 D1 teams.
Yeah.
In basketball there's like 300 and I don't know what.
Yeah,
but
that's amazing.
And Eric Mika, by the way, is going to join us next week.
Yeah, Eric's been joining us on some of the pregame shows, and
he's doing a good job.
Yeah, I think Eric and I are going to lunch Friday.
Good. Well, remind him he's on next week.
I'll remind him.
Here's the Cougar Board question of the week. If you're not familiar with Cougar Board, it's the largest online community of BYU fans with thousands of posts every day. This question comes from Pete, one of their insider subscribers. What differences do you see between the BYU basketball team that lost to Arizona and Cincinnati 2 weeks ago against the team that beat Kansas and Arizona this week? The noticeable ones are, even though BYU got out-rebounded by Arizona again, they got their own timely rebounds. Offensive boards late, boards that they had to get that they didn't get the first time they played, which was a big thing. They made better free throws at Arizona than in the Arizona game. And Cincinnati a couple of weeks ago, they've cut down on turnovers. But I think the 11 guys have kind of accepted their roles a little bit.
I think about it. The last 2 games, 9 and 10 turnovers.
Yeah.
Right. And points off of turnovers, BYU had a big advantage over Arizona. And to me, it's a couple of not so much statistical things, but confidence, trust, and Kevin Young keeps learning. And I like how he's learning. Remember he talked to us about how excited he was to play Arizona again because it felt like an NBA thing where you play somebody and then you make the adjustments because they don't make adjustments because they won so handily and then they have to make adjustments on the fly, and if they can't, you win. That's kind of NBA mentality. I thought what they did was great. I feel like Kevin Young's getting confidence in what groups of players out on the floor together work best at certain times of the game.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking he's tightening up that and understanding that better. I think the players, remember we were going to do this peel switch defense at the beginning of the year?
Right.
Very, very complex defensive scheme. And we saw him teaching it like crazy. They've backed off of it a little bit. They're not doing as much of that. They've simplified the defense. And so I think the players are understanding it better, and they're playing better defense as well. I thought they played very good defense against Kansas.
Well, Watt Mag has played great defense, and Trey Stewart coming off the bench.
Yeah.
Those two guys had to deal with Love, and Love's a phenomenal player, an NBA guy, but he didn't kill him in the end. He tried to,
right,
but he didn't. But in Provo, when they were here, he did.
He killed him.
And I thought that was one of the biggest differences is Stewart's impact on the defensive end of things, and then Mag as well.
Yeah, and I feel like Caba's getting better every game, and I feel like Kevin's has a better idea of how to use all these weapons right now, and they've been a good offensive team all year. They're just so much more. They're just so much better because they were always good, and now they have confidence. And now this is a great This is an elite offensive basketball team, one of the best in the country, and the defense is just getting incrementally better. And playing Mawat more and playing Trey, that's all a result of Kevin having a better understanding of this team.
And is there a better, more attractive shot? Now, Richie's high release shot is good, but when Cannon Catchings grabs it, jumps, and does that high release, and it goes in, is there anything more pretty than that?
When Cannon's 4 of 6, and Caba's terrorizing everybody on the defensive end, BYU's really hard to beat because Richie's good every game. He's never not good. Right?
He'll find a way. Even if his shot's not there, he'll find a way to be an impact.
And Dallon's been playing better. So I think collectively, this is just... You remember what Kevin Young said to you and I in the little room over there in the Marriott Center before a game a month or so ago, and you were asking him some specific questions about guys. He goes, listen, guys, I'm more concerned of who we are as March approaches than I am with who we are right now.
Because they had some guys who were really struggling.
He's like, I'm learning some things about these guys. They're learning some things about how we coach. This is a project whose ultimate goal is to be really, really good in March. Yep. And guess what? They're getting better. And hey, when we were talking to them, nobody was even talking about them being in the NCAA tournament.
Right.
Now ESPN's saying they're a lock.
So they're in the top 25. And you know what? As we go back to our theory of football, if you can win at Arizona, why can't you win at Iowa State?
You can win at Iowa State.
And all of a sudden, you're just up there.
The way they're playing offensive right now, they can beat anybody.
They're going to win more Big 12 games this year than they did last year.
Kansas's coach said they could have beaten anyone tonight, including Auburn. So,
right. And then they went to Arizona and beat Arizona.
Right.
So Wednesday night, it'll be fun to watch them play Arizona State. The women's basketball, let's jump to that. They're 13-14, 4-12 on the season. Arizona State rallied from 5 down with a minute to play, forced overtime. And then the Sun Devils took it from there, 85-73. Delaney Gibb had 25 points and 11 rebounds. Cougars had 20 turnovers. That's been their
Achilles heel, right?
Gibb named the the Big 12 Big 12 Freshman of the Week for the 9th time. That's the second most in Big 12 history. The record's 12. And I don't know if they're going to have enough weeks to get that.
And here's the thing, though. Is she not the Big 12 Freshman of the Year?
Absolutely. It's a runaway.
Is there anybody even close?
For her to be a freshman All-American as well.
And how about my dear friend Teresa Spalding Hampson? Her number 54 jersey was retired during a halftime ceremony this last week. And Teresa used to come work out with us, work out with the football team, and run in the indoors in the wintertime. I'm so happy for Teresa. Not only was she a great player here, but she's provided BYU's women's programs, volleyball and basketball.
With 3, 6, 7.
3 stars. So retire her number for that alone, but she was a great player when she was here.
Mark Johnson on the stream says, Mag and Stewart can tell you the flavor of the gum. If you remember the scene from Hoosiers, the kid came over, was assigned a big score, and he sat down, he looked at Gene Hackman, and he said, it was Dentine.
Yeah.
The flavor of the gum. Thanks for that comment, Mark. About Arizona, they got BYU 65-57.
Wildcats were up 37-18 in the second quarter.
That was on the road.
And then the Cougars cut it down to 4 late in the fourth, but no closer. And the same thing, 20 turnovers in that Arizona State game, 21 turnovers in the Arizona game.
Now, I'm not a mathematician, but that's 41. That means in 2 games to try and beat those teams, we're going to try to beat you, but we're going to give you the ball 41 extra times.
And they're not forcing 41 turnovers, so the other team's just getting way more possessions.
That's just nuts.
And the other theme is Delaney Gibb just is awesome in every game. 16 points and 5 assists in that one.
Yeah, getting better. Women's Big 12 standings, TCU and Baylor are at 14-2. They're number 1. Kansas State is 13-3 at number 3. BYU sitting at 12 at 4-2. And again, the Cougars are
4-12.
4-12.
Yeah.
They're back against Kansas, tomorrow night at the Marriott Center, 7 o'clock Mountain Time.
Right. And then at Utah Saturday, 1:30 Mountain Time. That's the regular season finale. Both games are available on ESPN Plus and BYU Radio.
So that tells me that Delaney has a chance to get 10 straight, or not straight, but 10 Freshman of the Week awards. We won't get to 12 because they're running out of weeks.
Right.
Because for them, remember, their tournament's a week earlier than the men. So their regular season ends this weekend, and up at Utah is going to be a tough assignment because the Utes are pretty good.
Yeah. How about volleyball? Men's volleyball is 12-4, 2-0 in the Big 12.
Or MPSF. Either one.
Oh, dang it.
I should put that on there.
Yeah, no, and we talked about that when Coach was on. BYU swept Barry University 3-1 and 3-0 this last week. This week, USC's at BYU Friday and Saturday. That's a big matchup.
That's a big one.
7 p.m. Mountain Time both nights. Friday live on BYU TV. Saturday live on the Big Ten Network. Plus, that's on demand on BYU TV at 10 p.m. afterwards.
So the Trojans, that's always a fun volleyball night.
Big rivalry.
That'll be huge. Gymnastics defeated Iowa State in Ames, Iowa this week. Arizona State's at BYU. Friday, 7 o'clock Mountain Time on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, and the baseball team, which you've been traveling with, you didn't know these guys really well. They are currently 4-4. They split 4 games at Fresno State, lost at UCLA, and then took 2 of 3 at Cal State Northridge. You talked about that. Cougars hit 10 home runs last Thursday at CSUN. That's the most in a game for BYU in 26 years.
And 9 were in the first 3 innings.
That's crazy. Was that just fun to call that?
The wind was blowing out to right. And some jumped out, and some just literally blew out.
Oh, my goodness.
And then Brock Watkins came out and hit one to left. You're going, now that's a home run because that went into the wind. But the jet stream was, I don't know if it's the Santa Anas or the kinship of all living things, but something crazy was going on with home runs. And then they came back and got one the next night. But so it was a wild time. Cooper Vest, the Big 12 co-player of the week, 3 home runs, 3 doubles, 5 runs batted in. So he got it going. They've got to work out a few bugs.
They have a chance to be good, right? And you're seeing them firsthand.
Yeah, they've got a chance, but the pitching's got to be better. The starting pitching's got to be better. Hitting's got to come along. And I mean, they have a 52-game schedule. They're 8 games in and 4-4.
Yeah.
And this one against Gonzaga just got beat 2 of 3 at Baylor. It'll be a rivalry, 2 old friends back together from the WCC. Thursday at 4 Mountain Time, Friday at 4 Mountain Time, Saturday at 2 Mountain Time. All games on ESPN Plus, and then I'll be back on the call with Tuckett Slade on BYU Radio. But I'll tell you, there was an experience that I tweeted out a week ago last Sunday. The baseball team had this 4-steak fireside at Fresno. That's where I met McKay Madsen's parents.
Right.
And so the place was packed. But on the way from the hotel to the steak center, a steak center where Steve Cleveland told me he helped build because he's a longtime Fresno guy. So we're heading there, and one of the assistants gets up and goes, guys, okay, remind you we're singing this song as the closing song. And he passed out all the words to practice the we'll bring the world his truth. We're the armies of Helaman type thing. And so everyone got their thing, and they're not all members of the church, and they're not all returned missionaries and all that stuff, but their assignment was to sing, and so they all practiced. So here we are on a bus driving down the mean streets of Fresno, and I'm listening to 30 ball players singing "We Are the Army of Helaman," and I took my phone out. I recorded a little of it and tweeted it out because I'm like going, you know what? There's a lot of buses in the country, and there's a lot of people going a bunch of different places, but this is the only bus where a baseball team is singing a church song on their way to go sing it at a fireside, and that's what's cool about BYU. That's what makes it different. That's what makes it unique. You could feel the spirit in the bus. And again, not all the guys are members of the church, but they felt it too. They participated, and they got it, and they belted the song out at the Stake Center. And I'm watching all these young men and young women just spellbound as they watch them sing to cap the night. And we hear people talk about that BYU's different. It is different, and that's what makes it different. And so we got Arizona fans chanting what they're chanting, and we got a baseball team driving down the street in Fresno singing "We Are of the Armies of Helaman," right? Yeah, and so you know what? It is different, and we embrace it, and we don't like it when the Arizona fans or other fans act, not all of them, but a little group of them act like they do, because they shouldn't act that way to anybody, anywhere, at any time. But there's something different about BYU, and that was fun to witness on Friday as we I don't know what street we were on, but it was the main drag in Fresno.
That's pretty fun.
And these guys were singing. So that's the baseball update.
Great stuff. Hey, how about softball 9-4 this week? BYU's at Sacramento State Thursday, at UC Davis Friday, at San Jose State Friday, against San Jose State Saturday, and then UC Riverside Saturday. So
they're off to a good start.
Over in Cal, 9-4 is a good start, and this team has a chance to be really, really good. And Gordon Eakins and that softball team 9-4.
Men's tennis, they're now 9-1 this week. BYU's at Denver Friday and at Air Force on Saturday. They're doing that Rocky Mountain swing.
Yeah, and women's tennis off to a great start, 10-3, and we've had Holly Hassler on this program. This week BYU's at Arizona. And Thursday, BYU at Arizona State, and they're at Arizona Thursday in Tucson, and then at Arizona State Saturday in Tempe.
Women's golf, the Causeway Invitational, they're in Sacramento. That wraps up tomorrow. Next is the Dr. Donis Thompson Invitational over in Hawaii at the end of March.
Yeah, I'll go. We have volunteered to cover anything, any sport that BYU's doing in Hawaii. You and I have offered to go call the game, do a live stream from there, whatever they want.
Yeah, all they have to do is fly us first class, and put us up
in a good hotel on the beach.
Yeah, that's it.
And we'll call the games.
We'll call it.
So nobody's taken us up on that yet. So, but we used to do games in Hawaii in the old days.
Yeah, we did, but not for free.
So men's golf. You just talked women's golf, men's golf, right?
Yeah.
Next is at the Lambkin Invitational on March 10th through 11th in San Diego. We'll do that too.
Yeah, we would do that. Swim and dive, the Big 12 championships start tomorrow. They run through Saturday in Federal Way, Washington. We wish the Cougs the best of luck.
Yeah. Women's volleyball spring schedule. Weber State's at BYU this Friday at 6 p.m. in the field house, right?
Yeah.
Mountain Time. Yeah.
And then spring soccer is doing their thing too.
That's right.
They're going to play Utah Valley Saturday at 1:20 in the BYU indoor facility.
How does that work?
I think they got a few teams in there.
Can you have fans? They put some bleachers in there? How does that work?
They have done it for, maybe we'll see. They've done it before, and they put some seats in there, but and you can stand around the field.
Yeah, you can stand around,
The good news is they got a heater in there.
Yeah, that's better than playing.
The frozen tundra
by Saturday, right?
South Field is not what you want. So, all right, let's go down. Let's head down the home stretch.
Yeah, let's do On This Day. So on this day, February 24th, over the years, let's start in 1541. Santiago, Chile was founded.
How about that? On this day. Yeah. On this day in 1863, Arizona Territory is created.
So what we're saying is Santiago, Chile's been around a lot longer than Arizona.
Yeah.
So in 1932, Malcolm Campbell sets the world land speed record at 253.96 miles per hour at Daytona Beach.
Yeah. And now they're so much faster than that.
The Formula One cars average 220 miles an hour around the track.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah.
1972, Priscilla and Elvis announcing their separation.
Yeah,
that's a big deal back then.
Sad day. Yeah, I remember it. 1979, the highest price ever paid for a pig. $42,500 in Stanford, Texas.
They paid a pig for a pig. They paid $42,000.
That's a lot of bacon, man.
That is a lot of bacon, man. That's some pig. Every now and then you see
some pig.
You see them pull some giant tuna.
Is that Charlotte's Web? That's some pig.
Probably.
Yeah, I think it is.
Was that Wilbur or something?
Yeah, Wilbur.
Every now and then you see a big giant tuna.
Yeah.
That sells for some remarkable amount of money because they're going to do sushi.
Is there $42,000 worth of bacon on a pig? I don't think so.
Might be by today's market.
So
that was in 1979. That's when $42,000 was.
That's a lot. That was a lot of money back then.
1980 on this day, the U.S. beat Finland 4-2 to win the gold medal at the 1980 Olympics in Lake Placid. Mm-hmm. They had beaten the Soviet Union in the semis, Miracle on Ice, back on Saturday, so 2 days before. And then they won the gold medal 2 days later, which was today.
That speech by Herb Brooks, recreated by, goodness, Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell, yeah. That was good.
Oh, I still get the chills when I
That was
listen
all over social media when we were playing the Canadians.
Yeah, I just love when he goes, they say they're the greatest team in the world. Not tonight.
Not tonight.
I love it. So
1981 on this day, Prince Charles announces he's engaged to Lady Diana Spencer.
Yeah.
How about that?
That's wild. In 1987, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar scored his 36,000th point in a game against the Suns. 36,000 points. Yeah, Kareem.
On this day in 2022, closing ceremonies for the Salt Lake Olympics. The games will return to Utah in 2034. That's just around the corner.
Yep. So now let's go February 24th birthdays.
All right.
1874, Honus Wagner, Hall of Fame shortstop. And his card, do you remember when his trading card, there was only one left in the world and it was worth millions?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. 1938 on this day, Phil Knight of Nike.
Yeah, which Coach Ed Eyestone told us that, it helps that BYU has a Nike agreement.
Let's be honest, Nike's changed sports, some for the better and some for not the better, but they're right in the middle of it.
And when everything changed is when they went out on a limb and said, let's sign Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
and then everything changed after that. So
that's right.
1955, Steve Jobs, the Apple co-founder. It's his birthday, February 24th, 1955.
On this day in 1977, Floyd Mayweather Jr., Money Mayweather was born.
Yeah. February 24th, deaths. 1990, Malcolm Forbes passed away. The famous financier and magazine founder.
How about 2006, Don Knotts, Andy Griffith's show?
Oh, he was.
Apple Dumpling Gang.
Was he Barney Fife in that?
Barney Fife, yeah.
Oh, my
what
goodness,
a great actor.
Funny. 2014, Harold Ramis from Ghostbusters.
I watched Ghostbusters the other day.
Yeah.
Or part of it 'cause it was on. It was a funny show.
Oh, and Harold Ramis was funny guy. Put him with Bill Murray.
Do you think Ghostbusters is the most quoted movie of all time? With one-liners?
It's right up there.
I mean, the whole show is a bunch of one-liners. I think it might be right up there. Yeah. Our Wise Guy's inspirational quote of the week is from Steve Jobs.
Yeah, Steve Jobs says, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. So
that's Steve Jobs. We thank Jeff Hansen and Ed Eyestone, and we wish the BYU track and field the best of luck at this week's indoor Big 12 championships over in Lubbock, Texas. Eric Mika is going to join us next week. We may have a couple other guests.
Yeah, we were looking at another one that would be fun.
We'll keep you posted on that. And the Cougar Board kind of lists, too, our guests coming up, so you can see that if you're over there.
So where can you find us this week? So I will be on the West Virginia game on Saturday.
Yeah, did I write Arizona State? Yeah.
On the West Virginia game, I had to think about that for a minute. On Saturday on BYU TV. And then Dave, you in Deseret News all week long, writing articles. They got to read the article about the superhero Richie Saunders.
Yeah, Richie Saunders is BYU Superman. That's out there tonight.
Yeah, and then you'll be with the baseball team. When do you guys leave? I know the series is Thursday through Saturday. So you leave on Wednesday for up to Spokane, which, by the way, is cold this time of year.
I know. It's kind of like ours.
Yeah.
But the weather looks like it's going to be like 50 degrees.
Yeah.
And they have a fake field like we do, so you can get out on it.
So there you go. So Thursday through Saturday, you'll be calling that series on BYU Radio.
Yeah, it'll be a busy week. By the way, Jet Thompson says Princess Bride.
Oh, yes.
Was the
As You Wish, yeah. No.
On the pig.
I see you have 6 fingers. No, I know, like the 6-finger man. No, the Princess Bride, yeah.
Oh, do you think he's thinking that's the most quoted, or is that where pig? That's Some Pig.
Oh, no, Some Pig is definitely Charlotte's Web.
Yeah.
So, but he's saying maybe more quoted as the Princess Bride. I
don't know. Ghostbusters is full of
got
stuff.
A lot of them. So, hey, and don't forget, Wise Guys is presented by Brady Plus and distributed by the Deseret News.
It's been a fun show, and next week's show will be right engaged in spring football.
Yep.
So we'll give you an update on all that, and we'll have a good time, and let's see if we can get a couple more wins on the court this week.
And we'll see a few other places this week, but we'll see you next week right back here.
Thanks, everyone.